Hello, chat. Hello. Oh, my little test message is there. I have been messing around with a lot of settings lately, so this is kind of a prototype test run, whatever you want to call it. So let's turn off this old chat, because this one is gross and icky, and I got rid of it. Um, so yeah, definitely unannounced stream. It's gonna be a pretty short stream, but I did want to put something out, because I've been meaning to watch the Death Guard stuff, and I keep forgetting to, or I get lazy or whatever. So I was like, fuck it, let's watch it with chat. That sounds like a pretty good idea. So we'll do that. But I do have work in a couple hours, so can't stick around forever. Unfortunately. So sad. Hey, Sigartor. Um, YouTube is telling me that the stream, I need to change the stream resolution. I don't agree with that, and I will not comply. So, um, right on. Let's get started. I've watched a bit of the, whatchamacallit. Words escape me. Sorry, I just woke up. I watched a bit of, like, what new Death Guard does, but not everything. So, I don't know. This is still very much first impression, besides, like, maybe the fact that they're a little bit tougher. So, alright. Let me turn this down. And let's move over to game scene. And it is not showing. Hold on. Oh, it's because this is, there we go. Alright, first things first. Auspex dropped this video. We love Auspex. We are going to show him some support. Link is in the description. Please give it a like. Not in the description, in the chat. Blah. I have this new chat widget thing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a website called Nico Nico. It's like Japanese YouTube basically, and they have chat that flies across the screen like that. And I wanted to add it because I thought it was cool. So if you see chat flying across the screen, you know why, right? Right on. Maybe I should make the chat smaller. It is kind of taking up a lot of the screen. There we go. Alright, let's do this.
Or Great Bell 7 times because the Death Guard Codex is here.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
talk about the powerful new rules for the army,
I
a bunch of fun
speed
new
up this
detachments,
shit.
and some interesting changes to the data sheets.
Sorry, Auspex, you speak a
Hello,
little
welcome
too
back to
slow.
Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Death Guard, and in this video we're going to do a full review of the new Codex for Warhammer 40k, which does seem like it's going to add a fair bit more fun
We're
to
gonna
the
skip
army,
a little
and some of
bit.
the rules changes looking like interesting and
Let me know
powerful
if the
ones
volume is
for the
good.
better. If you're looking to pick up the book, Battle Round 1, units within 3 inches of your models are afflicted.
Right.
Battle Round 2, it's 6 inches. And then Battle Round 3 or more, it's 9 inches from any of your miniatures, so covering quite a bit of the board if you're pushing up at that point. Units within those auras are said to be afflicted, and there's really quite a lot of detachment rules that interact with that. Some things that get bonuses against afflicted units.
Yeah, I got a little
other
model.
Units afflicted,
He's
so
adorable.
quite a lot of interplay with the main detachment rule. This aura buff
I like
provides
him.
2 different effects. First up, all the enemies within range get -1 toughness. That's pretty good for a bunch of different breakpoints. It won't be relevant for every attack that hits every single enemy unit, but a good number of them. Say for example, Death Shroud Terminator Man
Okay, so it looks like
Terminators on a 2 as they drop down from 5 to 4.
it looks like Contagion is basically the same, right? 369. Damn, she fine. -1T. Oh, cats are fucking bothering me. What do you want, buddy? Go back to sleep. Alright.
On top of that, though, they have a further Plague debuff chosen at the start of the game, which they basically combined the Plague Company special rule in with the core rule to make the overall Army Nurgle's Gift rule a bit more impactful, which I think was quite a good idea, really.
Okay.
-1 toughness did have impact, but maybe wasn't the single most interesting thing in the world all by itself. In any case, at the start of the game, you get to choose between these 3. Skull Squirm Blight gives you -1 to hit for enemy units within contagion range. That was changed from the -1 to weapon skill and ballistic skill.
Okay, so they added the Plague Company stuff to the army rule. So it's not just -1T. That's actually really cool. I'm a big fan of that. Ooh, -1 a hit as opposed to -1 weapon ballistic skill. So now it's a modifier. Ugh. That kind of sucks. -1 leadership, OC, and movement. What is the movement characteristic? -1 inch. Oh no! Yeah, I still think you take rattle joint. I think that's still the better. I mean, I can see skull squirm being something you might take if you're like facing what's the name of these fuckers? Like orcs or maybe some sort of nid list. If you really don't care about the I guess the save because it's already a low save. Okay.
What it was before, and technically that's a small nerf. It means that you can't stack the -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill with a -1 to hit, so basically you're not getting any more than a -1 on the enemy units, even with technicalities like that. In general, maybe the single most useful one for most games is the -1 to saving throws one. So basically if you were attacking a Space Marine with an AP0 weapon, they'd have a 4+ save, not a 3+, and that stacks with AP like normal. I'd say that probably tends to be the most commonly played one, given that lots of armies have good armor out there. It might not always be the best choice though, and the -1 to hit could easily be the better one. Say if you're fighting demons that don't really get armor saves in the normal way, or lots of bad saves like orcs perhaps. Otherwise, the third option is a -1 leadership, -1 OC, and -1 movement debuff. You can't reduce the OC to any less than 1, so it's mainly good for debuffing things like battle line units with OC2. The leadership thing might occasionally yield some more failed battle shocks, and the movement thing is a new addition to that to try and make this one a little bit better. It could genuinely be annoying for units trying to get where they need to go, but at the same time only 1 inch of each movement isn't absolutely enormous, though it can add up over the course of a game. I still suspect that most people will probably go for one of the first two. Maybe the last one could be okay for some niche buffs from the plague detachments, or maybe for some very clever players doing some top tier tournament things, but I feel like most average players will get more from the extra damage or defense. As one interesting consequence of that, this is a big buff to the Flyblown Host Grotmus detachment, as previously it didn't get that choice of plagues and now it suddenly does. So that's a bonus boost there, as that one often has a -1 to hit. They can afford to go for the AP one to make their units really quite a lot more dangerous.
So I guess that's a way you could stack it technically. Because Flyblown Host gives you stealth to every infantry unit. I really liked Flyblown Host when it came out. Like, the idea on paper seemed really cool, but apparently it felt pretty flat. I played it once. I don't think I played it on stream. It was okay. I just wanted to play Terminator spam, and there was that.
Although the detachment interacts with it as well, the Mortarian's Hammer Tank focused detachment can hand out contagions to longer range, and the Champion's detachment can swap them out each turn. Lots of fun things that could interact with how you play them, and overall I think that's quite a fun army rule. Seems like they're trying to make Death Guard feel resilient on their data sheets without having to take up the faction core rule for that. That's by far the main Death Guard core rule, but they do have another smaller one for the allied demons called Pact of Decay. One of the major changes for the book is that there's a bunch of demon datasheets in there, just 6 of them. The Rate Unclean one, Plague Bearers,
Only
Doctors,
6.
Nurglings, Plague Drones, and Beasts of Nurgle. Most things made the jump, but not everything. The non-monstrous leader characters didn't make it into here. These datasheets are all locked to one detachment. They all have the Plague Legion keyword.
Wait, what happens to our boy Sloppity Biopiper then? A lot of the leaders are gone. Holy shit. My understanding is that since Demons isn't getting a Codex, anything that doesn't make it is gone. So, you mean to tell me there's only, what, 6 Nurgle Demons in the game now? I don't know, man. I'm kind of like... I kind of just don't think they had to do that.
Word, not Death Guard, and then Pact of Decay basically means that you can't
It's so
take
weird
as your primary army keyword. So basically the only way that you can fill the datasheets is with a special rule in the Taliban
Chat,
detachment.
Year of Chaos, by the way. I know that's like a meme that's not substantiated, but the Year of Chaos is when we do a Space Wolves refresh and we gut demons. It's fucking stupid, man.
Maybe a slightly confusing way of doing it, but basically the upshot is Nurgle demons only in the one allied detachment, not in the other ones. Unfortunately, that is the only way to ally demons into the army now, as per Games Workshop's digital update. So no taking random Plague Bearers, Beasts of Nurgle, or Nurglings into the other detachments anymore, which is a bit of a shame for some players' collections. I'm sure a few folks will be a bit unhappy about that. Game-wise, it felt like things like Nurglings might have been the most common thing to be included due to their cheap costs and infiltrate. It now seems that Poxwalkers are taking up the infiltrate role though, so I guess we'll see a fair few of them in place of Nurglings. Core rules aside, let's get into the detachments, and as mentioned there's 6 of them. These are the rough names and themes. Virulent Vectorium is the rather wordy remade Plague Company. Shamble Rot Vectorium is the Poxwalker focused one. Champions of Contagion is the sort of plagues and character focused one, mainly centered around the minor support characters. The Taliban Summoners is the allied Nurgle.
Maybe GW meant Year of Chaos in the design department? Dude. Year of Chaos, everyone, where we kill fucking chaos.
Demons one. The Death Lord's chosen is Terminator focused, and
So
Mortarian's
weird.
hammer is tanks and demon engines. As mentioned, they'll also have that fly-blown host Grotmus one, which is infantry under a great swarming cloud of flies. And for most of the detachments, you can field any unit in any of them besides the demons, but most of them have their buffs and support for just one class of unit, so you're really likely to go heavy on that class of unit if you take that army. First up, let's talk about new style play company, and that's the Virulent Vectorian. This one's a balanced Death Guard warband with some support that helps out most of their codex. The core rule is called World Blight, and that's basically sticky objectives for the whole army. If you control an objective marker at the end of your command phase with a Death Guard model, then that marker will remain under your control until the end of the game. Unless your opponent can control it at the end of any phase, then it flips to them. Generally, it's a good supporting rule, means that occasionally you can abandon objectives that are
World
completely
Blight sounds
safe and
pretty
take the fight to
metal.
the
So it's just the old rule. Handy enough objective support, not super exciting, far less standout when the detachments also provided those extra plagues. Yeah, so it's just they took the plagues from Play Company, gave it to the army rule, and then just kept the sticky objective on.
the enemy, and there's a few other tricks that you can do with it. And the objective also counts as generating Nurgle's Gift as well, which potentially could be quite relevant in the later rounds when it's a big 9 inches, and you might have some units that are in range of it but aren't in range of your units. It's a handy enough supporting rule, though now this one no longer is tied to those boosted plagues. It feels like a slightly weaker detachment rule overall, maybe a bit more of the power being shifted to the stratagems. Stratagems wise, first up we have Putrid Detonation for 1 command point. That's auto trigger deadly demise on a Death Guard vehicle or monster when they're destroyed, and enemy units caught by that explosion and taking mortal wounds also get afflicted until the start of your next turn, which might not be all that long if the enemy destroys them in their own turn. If a vehicle or monster goes up in the right place, then this could absolutely be worth it. Bloat drones and blight haulers both have D3 explosions now, so they can take a chunk out of the enemy army even for quite a light vehicle. If you have one of those on the last leg,
So I want to hear a joke. Hit me with it.
It could be worth just trying to get them killed in the enemy turn in their own fight phase.
The state of
Shower
chaos.
A bunch of models with mortal wounds potentially. Probably not normally one to plan around, but pretty great opportunistically. For 2
The World Eater's new rules. I've heard it's pretty bad. I haven't looked into it. The crazy part is that I've always been into World Eaters more than Death Guard, but like lately I've just been really liking Death Guard. So I heard the rules are bad, and I'm kind of glad that I'm leaning towards Death Guard right now. I mean, I've started building some Terminators already. We'll see. We could probably do a stream tomorrow. Well, I say that maybe just today I have a little bit more time before I go to work as opposed to tomorrow. We'll see. This edition does not look kind to me. I have Admech and World Eaters as an army and working on a Night Lord's army. World Eaters Codex seems to work from the B team. Yeah, I thought that meme was a little dead. It seems like it's still very much here, the whole A versus B team. So, I'm working on Death Guard right now. I finished 6 Blight Lord Terminators, and I was kind of praying to God that the Codex would make them good. It seems like they're still good. So yay. Yay for me at least. But what was I saying? Shit. World Eaters is always I thought about building World Eaters because I was gonna buy the Dark Angels box. But then I was like, no, I think I'd rather build World Eaters. But the more I look at their models, hot take, I don't like how their models look, personally. I like how like Horn Berserkers look, Angron looks cool, parts of Exalted 8-Bound look cool, but like I don't like Exalted 8-Bounds. And I'll elaborate if I start getting crucified. Anyway.
Command point, there's disgustingly resilient.
That's
the -1 damage one. Now it's in the shooting or fight phase. Previously it was just in the fight phase. It is a big investment one. You could use a Demon Prince to make it a little bit cheaper. If your models get attacked by a whole bunch of damage 2 or damage 3 attacks, then it could be absolutely massive and make one tough unit take a lot less damage than it would have otherwise. For 2 command points, there's Plague Surge. This one again is very expensive, and your Warlord needs to be on the board. It does give you army-wide contagions boosted by a further 3 inches though, and it lasts from your command phase until the start of your next one. This one's not going to directly help out your melee units when they're fighting in close combat, so it's generally a bit more relevant for either debuffing the enemy or helping out your shooting with AP. It might depend on the units that you're taking. Quite a few of them get damage buffs against afflicted units, some of them quite good ones at range like Blight Lord Terminators. If you've got lots of data sheets that really need units to be afflicted to have their best value, maybe Death Shroud Terminators as well, perhaps this one could be useful enough if you've got multiple effects at different areas of the battlefield. Next up, there's a potentially great one for Mortarian in particular, called Leech Spore Eruption. You select one of your models that's lost wounds, and in your command phase, if that model's within 3 inches of an enemy unit, you roll 1d6 for each wound that you've lost. For each 5+, that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound, and then your model regenerates 1 wound for each wound lost. This feels like it could be an absolutely amazing one.
Oh, that's
for
cool.
Just tries to kill Mortarian, but doesn't quite manage.
So it's like a siphon. For each one lost, do you have to be within range? Oh, within 3 inches? Okay. I mean... yeah, it seems like a Mortarian thing if you start pitting shit against him. It looks like it doesn't bring back, so maybe it's not the best on a unit with low wounds. Interesting.
which is definitely possible with his massive durability stats. Maybe you could be rolling something like 12 dice, suddenly get 4 mortal wound on the enemy, and heal Mortarion for 4 wounds then and there, which could be pretty brutal. Really big value in the right situation, but sort of dependent on your opponents to allow you to use it. For one command point, there's Overwhelming Generosity. You use this with a character unit at the start of the shooting phase to mark one enemy unit that's visible, and then every one of your units that gets a random number of shots with a weapon can re-roll the number of attacks against that unit when they target them. So maybe good for things like Plague Burst Crawlers with their barrage weapons, anything that's sort of like Plague Flamer profiles, or Blight Launchers, they're all blast now. Could be nice for the heavy Blight ones on the new Blood Drone
reroll
variant.
attacks.
It feels very nice for a Lord of Virulence as well, which could also allow you to re-roll hit rolls with blast weapons in command.
It'd be nice for I don't know if they still have them, but Death Shrouds. I mean, like, not that the flamers are that good, but it's a lot of flamers. So, but probably, yeah, Plague Burst Crawlers. Plague Spitters are kind of whack, unless you change them. We'll see.
Or battery of bloat drones with blight launchers or Plague Burst Crawlers seems like quite a serious threat. Finally, for stratagems, there's a 1 command point Creeping Blight. An infantry unit in your shooting phase can reroll all hits and wounds when shooting an afflicted unit, which is pretty punchy. That feels like that's a very savage one for Terminators. You already get +1.
Oh, infantry unit? I mean, hey, that's still pretty fat.
One strength and
I have to keep that one in mind in the back of my head.
That's going to make their range damage go from fairly good to pretty great. Could be nice for other things though, such as Blightspawn or Plague Casters re-rolling wound rolls. Overall, plenty of really quite good general purpose stratagems there. Most of them could be well usable in the right situation. Feels like Mortarion, Blight Lords, and Bloat Drones could get a fair bit out of some of the buffs here, amongst other things. Finally, there's the enhancements. There's a Demon Weapon of Nurgle for 10 points printed. This one gives the bearer critical hits on a 5+, handy enough for most characters. But it seems great on a Lord of Contagion, who also gets sustained hits on his profile. Seems kind of auto-include.
Crit 5s for 10 points is pretty awesome.
Next, there's the Furnace of Plagues, though, to rival that a bit. That's +1 strength and +1 attack to bearer's melee weapons. And the game
oh my goodness, that's a bit pricey, but 1S, 1A, and Devastating, that is... that is cool. Wow, okay, so it looks like this detachment has just like solid strats, but really good enhancements.
It also seems very good on a Lord of Contagion. Hard to go too far wrong with big fighty guys in this detachment, I guess. Then we've got Arch Contaminator, listed at 25 points. This one's reroll wound rolls for the bearer's unit when they're in range of an objective marker they control. It applies to both range and melee, so you could get some Blight Lord reroll wound shooting if you wanted. Those seems a bit better in melee if you can get it active. It just might have the difficulty of whether or not you can actually take control of an objective that you're charging onto. Probably feels like it's best for Plague Marines in that case, maybe being led by a Lord of Poxes or something. Finally, for 20 points.
I wonder if this might be good to fish if you have like a big block of Blight Lords with combi bolters or combi weapons, because they have devastating and rapid fire. Not that it's going to be like amazing, but you know.
There's Revolting and Regeneration, a 5+ feel no pain for the bearer. Feels like that will have quite a good home on Demon Princes, who again a Lord of Contagion might like that as well, with that on the go and their Revive from Death special rule. That could be a serious amount of an annoying Terminator muscle to put down repeatedly.
5+ feel no pain. Oh, it's not limited. That's awesome. You could throw it on a Demon, but that's fucking sweet. I like that. That's cool. Oh, the Demon Prince is good, kind of like they did in
attachment rule and more towards the stratagems and enhancements.
The Emperor's Children Codex.
Of what it was before. Before we move on, I'll just give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, in Toy Snowman. They're a gaming store based in Montreal, Canada, active since 2019, and can be a good place to get Warhammer for cheaper there, amongst all their other collectibles and gaming offerings. They've got a good discount rate of 15% on Warhammer and Games.
Hey, nobody. How's it going? While the ad is playing, chat, I'm gonna be right back.
If you don't happen to live too close to their Montreal store, you can see here. They've got a pretty good and easy to search website as well, and they have a back order system where you can email the sales department at Toy Snowman with the address that you can see here if you want them to order in a Games Workshop item that they don't currently have in stock. As mentioned earlier, they're planning to have good supplies of the Death Guard Codex, the Battle Forces, and Combat Patrols, obviously pending what Games Workshop deigns to give them, of course. They'll be going live at midnight Eastern Time from Friday to Saturday with those pre-orders. In any case, a big thank you to them for sponsoring the video. Feel free to check them out, links down in the video description if you live in Canada. On with the detachments though, and next up we've got the Shamble Rot Vectorium, the Poxwalker focused detachment. Will be very nice for Harbinger style armies, or people who bought multiple copies of the previous Combat Patrol for Zombie Horde Death Guard in a big way. Probably worth mentioning that Poxwalkers have changed a bit, have gained Infiltrate so you can set them up in the midboard, and 2 more characters can attach to them, as well as Typhus, the Malignant Plaguecaster, and Noxious Blightbringer can as well now. The core rule for the detachment is a really unusual one. It basically gives you extra units of Poxwalkers arriving from reserves. You basically get a number of free 10-man Poxwalker squads depending on the battle size, and they arrive from strategic reserves as per the battle round set on the chart here. For a 1,000 point incursion game, it's battle rounds 2 and 3. For a 2,000 point strike force,
okay,
2, 3, and 4. Onslaught adds round 5 as well. That means you're essentially getting 33 Poxwalkers at 2,000 points.
Oh, Poxwalker detachment.
150 points or more, depending if they go up a bit, which I wouldn't be too surprised by.
My audio get fucked? Hold on. Yeah, it did. Hold on, chat. 1 sec. My computer's blowing up. Voice. There we go. The heck? says my headphones aren't connected. What did I do? Hello? Did one of my cats fucking unplug it? There we go. Alright, alright.
And on top of that, Poxwalkers also gain battle line as well, so you can have 6 squads of them, so in theory that's 150 plague zombies coming for the enemy if you max it out. Having 120 of them on the mid-board, then throwing more in as the game goes along does sound pretty intimidating on paper. Overall, a very unusual detachment rule. There's pretty much nothing else that just gives you...
That's really cool. You get basically, yeah, 150, because I think a brick of... Ooh, excuse me, hiccups. I think a brick of 10 is probably going to be 50 if it's 150 and you get 3 throughout a fight. I like the idea. Yo, rest in peace, Endless Horde. With fucking Gaunts. They can't get the revive. Neither can Crew. But, you know, you can get 3 free Poxwalkers. They should go back on that rule. As much as I don't like fucking... What's the name of these dickheads? Like walls of Gaunts because they're so annoying to chew through. I don't think that they should have, like, severely limited, you know, the Endless Horde. Same with Kroot. Like, Kroot took a really big hit with that, and they weren't even the problem child. Did you see the great balance of Overworld? They could have been so great, AdMech. Then you see our new sniper and regret GE's choices. The great balance. No. Are you talking about the balloons? Like the Cathay balloons? Because in which case, yes, I did see them. And my first thought was like, hey, how are you supposed to balance this? This looks like it's gonna break in like a matter of seconds. It looks like it's gonna snap, man.
The game starts. I guess perhaps the closest similarity is the Genes of the Cult detachment rule, or a couple of more new stratagems that can recycle one thing. Even those are more normally things that have been destroyed already, though. With this one, you'd have Poxwalkers turning up on the flanks, so lightly trying to put themselves as close to the enemy army as possible. And it means that this force should have just loads of board control, but probably not too much damage. It'll be left to the rest of the army to try and take what chunks out of the enemy that you can. Having loads of stuff infiltrate will have a massive first turn swing as well. If you go first, and probably great for you. If the opponent goes first, you're probably losing a lot of your army straight away. For stratagems, as you expect, they almost all focus around the plague zombies. First up, their shambling wall for one.
Yeah, the great balloons. Yeah,
stops damage happening.
Yeah, they look very like AdMech coded. I'll give you that. Yeah. I don't know if we would have needed it because I would assume that it counts as a flyers, and flyers are massive shit this edition. I mean, I would rather just our Archaeocopters became good, you know.
3 inches of a Poxwalker squad, provided the Poxwalker squad is also visible to the unit firing when attacks are allocated to that unit, so essentially they've managed to wound. Instead of taking normal saves, instead you just remove 1 Poxwalker per pip of damage that the attack has, which does mean that, say, a last cannon, if you roll high, could it remove 7 Poxwalkers.
I thought when you said balance, I understand now it's balloons, but I thought you were talking about like the lizards that they showed for the world of what's the name of this thing? The Lord of the Rings. Because a lot of people have been talking about that, and I just assumed they were called Great Balance.
It's hard to put wounds on him in the first place due to high toughness. For 1 command point, there's Grip of the Walking Pox. 1 Poxwalker unit that gets attacked in melee gets to deal with some mortal wounds as they die.
But no, I got you. It would have been cool.
And on a 6, the enemy suffers a mortal wound, and anything slain with those mortal wounds restores a Poxwalker to the board in the same way that their datasheet rule does. It does feel a bit low yield, this one, really, given that you'd have to lose loads of Poxwalkers to expect any...
Yeah, I like these strats, but they're always so bad. Like, Chaos has one in Chaos Cult. It's called like something sacrifice. And you lose cultists equal to the amount of damage, not the amount of wounds. I get it would be way too strong, but it seems like they get worse and worse. Like they were already kind of bad, but then they start adding stuff like it has to be visible to the flying unit. You don't make the saves beforehand. It has to be within 3. Like I don't know, man. I don't know.
Maybe if you think a big 20-man unit's just going to get...
Oh, it's specifically with Poxwalkers. The thing that sucks about this one, right? No, my English is just shit. No, man, it's great. I just, I should have put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, Poxwalkers, right? The thing that sucks about this stratagem is that Poxwalkers have feel no pains, and you don't get to make it here. Because you just destroy your Poxwalkers equal to the damage characteristic. You don't even get to like assign mortal wounds to them, which they can feel no pain, which kind of defeats the purpose of this stratagem, in my opinion.
Absolutely wiped out.
Oh, it has it right here. It could kill a lot of Poxwalkers without save and feel no pain. Oh, my bad.
Mortal wounds also you'd expect. For 1 command point, we have the lovely sounding Smeared with Filth. An enemy unit that destroyed a Poxwalker unit in the fight phase is afflicted until the end of the battle. So I guess basically the zombies burst all over you when you hit them, and then the
that is cool.
Always on, so it might mean the arm is always worse. Probably want to weigh up.
I like the end of battle strats. There's one other. What is it? Chaos is Soulforge Warpack has one like that, where you assign the demon keyword to a vehicle unit and it becomes a demon for the rest of the fight. I like stuff like this.
The very next turn, as to whether it's worth it, I feel like if you get pressing forward with a bunch of melee threats, you might still be able to make that unit afflicted anyway, particularly if there's poxwalkers all over the board, I suppose. Next up, for 1 command point, there's Gnawing Hunger. That one's +1 move, +1 attack, and +1 strength to a Poxwalker unit selected in the command phase. That could give them a bit more of a reasonable chance of dealing a bit of damage to the infantry. It's still not exactly massive though, particularly given that will still be 3 attacks that hit on 5s with lethal hits at AP 0 and damage 1, unless you've got AP -1 on the go. I guess it could help out attached characters a bit as well to the unit. Hidden Amongst the Dead costs 1 command point. That's 1 Poxwalker unit without a character that's in reserve. That gets to Deep Strike this turn. Probably best for the ones arriving from strategic reserve, if it would just be far more helpful for them to turn up in the middle of the board rather than at the edges. Still might be kind of limited value though, as once they get there, they're still just Poxwalkers. And then finally,
without a character.
Shock and Horror. This one's not Poxwalker locked, but maybe still isn't all that great. Any Death Guard unit that finished a charge triggers a Battle Shock test for their foe at -1 to the test. I guess okay for maybe certain secondaries scored at the end of the turn, or if the opponent desperately wanted to use a key stratagem.
I wonder if the Noxious Blightbringer still has that -2 to test when they're within contagion, because if you charge, it'll put it to -3. That'd be kind of fucking fat. That would be kind of crazy.
Something. It's still all very niche. To be honest, I think that the stratagems in this detachment are really quite weak. I feel like you might want to preserve a bunch of command points to spend for generic stratagems for non-Poxwalker units, probably.
Because that was a strategy with what's the name of this? A Flyblown Host, where people, I think, they would jump out of a Rhino and give -1 test to with Noxious Blightbringer, something of the sort. They did a combo with it. I can't remember. Yes, the zombie thing has identity. Yeah, it does seem like they're a little weak. We'll see the enhancements.
Like it could be the Shambling War one. You could actually protect a threat.
It's cool as fuck though, like flavorful.
There's a really big shooting unit that's just lining up to delete it, and then you could spam most of the wounds straight.
Reminds me of Chaos Cult.
They might not want to target. Finally, for the enhancements,
oh, there you go. Noxious Blightbringer.
The bone pipes, 25 points printed in the Codex. That's for a
I love that model. It's so cool.
+1 OC and +1 to Battle Shock or Leadership test while he's leading Poxwalkers. He makes them a little bit faster otherwise and gives the opponent.
Oh, 2 OC Poxwalkers sounds fucking annoying.
Outscoring game there. The Lord of the Walking Pox is 15 points printed. If the bearer is leading Poxwalkers and is in strategic reserve, then he can arrive on the board as if it were battle round 3. So I guess potentially even in the opponent's deployment zone right from turn 1 if they leave enough space. I guess could help with the whole early pressure style thing. And actually get some more threatening units with a character in it.
That's cool.
At the front of the fray. I guess maybe you could have a unit with Typhus in and also another character to get the whole.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if Typhus can still lead Poxwalkers and you just pop them in behind the enemy turn 1 with a brick of 20, that sounds funny as fuck. It's probably not great. You're probably gonna get shot off the board, but
in position as soon as possible. Next up, there's Storage Siphon for 10 points. That makes a Malignant
Plaguecasters can lead.
Go to damage D3 +1, but it kills D3 bodyguard Poxwalkers whenever they use it. That's fairly scary and punchy damage.
What? You don't even get to roll to see if it killed D3. I guess it's not the word. I hate this kills thing. It should be assigns mortal wounds so that you can try to fucking chance it. Like, you could try to feel no pain your Poxwalkers. So, yeah, finally caught 10. I mean, +1 damage to Plague Wound is pretty insane. Plague Wound's already strong. I'm back, by the way. Greetings from Polish admin community. How's it going over there? I love how my viewer base is, like, all over the world. I think that's so cool. I've been to Germany, but I haven't been to Poland. The 2 OC exploding in your face sounds really nasty and irradiating. Yeah. I am a fan of. So far, I like the identity of this, but I can tell it's probably not going to be like a playable one. I mean, who knows? I remember saying that Chaos Cults looked really good. Everyone said it looked really trash, and then it ended up being really good. So.
They just have a trade-off in destroying your own models. It'd certainly have to be pretty cheap to get looked at as a
+1 toughness to Poxwalkers.
25 points printed, and that one's +1 toughness to a Poxwalker unit being led by a character.
That sounds annoying. I suppose
that means it's for the Noxious Blightbringer or the Malignant Plaguecaster. That is pretty in line with their primary purpose.
25 is a bit much, though.
Poxwalkers would take a bit more small arms fire. Overall, some of the enhancements certainly feel like they're usable if you want to, at their points cost, and combined with the overall cost and offering of the leaders, I'm not sure how necessary they definitely are. I sort of wonder if the idea could just be to just spam out really cheap Poxwalkers and then preserve all the value for bigger damage dealers to loom up behind them, while your opponent's too busy to deal with them wading through hordes of chaff. Feels like the sort of detachment where I'm not sure whether it's going to be strong to the point of broken or a really bad idea. It's definitely a fun sounding detachment though, with the sheer amount of zombies that you can put on the board. Next up, we've got the Champions of Contagion.
Shitting and farting, yes sir.
For the Death Guard, and in particular the more sort of minor Vita Virion supporting characters, of which Death Guard really have quite a big.
This one seems like it will hinge on the Poxwalker points if they're cheap enough, might as well. I saw that Ospec said you get 150, or your list goes up to 2,150 effectively with all the extra poxwalkers you get. So I'm assuming they're 50 points a brick, of 10. I'm assuming. So what, 300 points to bring 60? Not bad.
To unleashing them on an unwitting foe on the battlefield. The core rule is called Manifold Maladies, and at the start of each battle round you can swap your active plague if a different one of Nurgle's gifts will be more helpful to you. So that means that you could say start with the -1 to hit one on if you think your opponent's going to be charging you early in the game or something, and then swap to the AP -1 to deal damage to them, and maybe in the late game swap to the OC and movement debuffs if that's going to be more helpful. It doesn't have value.
I think it's nice if the 3 of them were good, because right now it's only one or the other, and you can usually do okay if you don't have, like, I think when you go into a fight, you kind of know which one's the best, and while it is nice that you can switch, it's, yeah, sometimes it might not make sense to swap. Maybe the OC one. Maybe the OC one can actually save you sometimes. It'll just be like, hey, you don't get as much, and now I take this. We'll see.
And you could just weigh up what the battlefield situation is.
I wish we could get a horde of servitors. I'm not a fan of servitors, but I agree. Yeah, we should. It's still crazy to me that other armies have servitors while AdMech doesn't. That's fucking ridiculous. Well, AdMech doesn't have much players. We need to stick together in times of bullshit, right? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
And what you think is actually going to be most helpful, but on the other hand, you should have chosen the one that would be most useful over the course of the game anyway, so you're only really getting the value.
Yeah,
of what's
yeah, Auspex is 100%
right.
right.
Just the most sensible thing is to stick with the AP one all game long and deal lots of damage where possible, or stick with the -1 to hit one all game long and be a bit more durable.
What do I think about Mechanicum? Metallica was when I was like getting into 40k, I wanted to paint my army Metallica, but I heard that white was really hard to paint with. Now, granted, this was back when I only bought Citadel paints and I was a fucking baby, so I really didn't want to fuck with it. And then this was also at a time where people were very stingy about the color of your army, which is why I really like the changes they made in 10th to that regard, because I've had people say like, oh, well, I haven't had people say it to me during the time that I was learning how to play the game, but I remember like going to local game stores to try to just watch games, and somebody would bitch at another person because their Ultramarines were fucking, or they were playing like White Scars, but their Ultramarines were they were colored Ultramarines, and they were like, well, you know, and it's like, dude, shut up. But yeah, I was worried about that, and I just wanted to play Mars. I was like, I just want to run Call and do Wrath of Mars, so I painted them red. But I did tell myself, like, when I was getting into Kill Team, I wanted to make my Hunter Clade white, and then just be like, yeah, my Hunter Clade is a little Metallica detachment, and then if I ever decide to play the in 40k, then I'll just push them in and be like, yes, I know they don't match the rest of the army, they're just a little reinforcement unit, you know. It's like Vanguard's running an objective without charging just to see them from the objective. Yeah. I think that's probably what they're going to be doing here with changing the maladies. But it's just so... The thing is, like, if you don't need it throughout the course of a game, then you just kind of don't have an army rule, or a detachment rule, which is like, ugh. I think this will hinge on if the stratagems and the detachments are good, or the stratagems and the enhancements are good. Because so far, looking at the detachment, it's very up in the air. It's one of those very situational rules. So usually those are counterweighted by like good shit on the rest of it. What detachment do you use in your army? Which is your favorite? Halo's Creed, man. Halo's Creed 100%. 100% Halo's Creed. I am such a simp for it. It's all over my videos. Every single time I said Halo's Creed Battle Clade, it's usually said followed by Blessed be its text in all my videos.
Seem useless though, and does have a bit of fun interaction with the core mechanic. For their stratagems, they have the rather unclean-sounding Blessings of Filth. A leader-attached Death Guard unit shooting or fighting gets critical hits on a 5+. That's really quite a big damage buff there.
God!
Really great for the Lord of Contagion in particular. He and his unit will be getting lethal hits and sustained hits on a 5+. The same
yeah.
For a Malignant Plaguecaster attached unit. That seems like a really
there we go. Alright, yeah, see, that's good.
For 2 command points, there's Malignant Magnified. Again, this one's...
And leader attached, like, this is Death Shrouds and Blight Lords all the way. I don't know if Blight Lords are good. I heard that they're good, but I know right now they're not.
You get to reroll hits and wounds against an enemy unit below starting strength. This can be used in the shooting.
Below starting? Oh, 2 CP? Oh, never mind.
Phase. Spectacularly dangerous extra damage. Maybe could be good to deal some chip damage before some Terminators or Plague Marines charge in. The damage buff is definitely massive, but it is also an expensive stratagem as well. For 1 command point, there's Grotesque Fortitude. +2 toughness to a leader attached unit, activated after the enemy is selected as a target for shooting or melee. That's pretty big that you can know whether or not the actual toughness bracket is going to make a difference before activating it.
That's nice, yeah, that's nice. 2 toughness is really good.
Which can easily be worth 1 CP. Rarely it might be able to make it -2 to wound, turning a 3+ to wound.
Just through the rule of cool, I painted them classic red, then I got bored and kit bash retiring and painted them blue. Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for like uniformity, so I'm gonna paint all of mine red. But even now, like, the formula I used to paint red across my army has changed over the years, so you can tell that there's like a significant difference. Like, right, it used to be like an orange, like an orangish red, and now it's like a deep red. So, are you kit bashing some models? For nobody, it sounds like he is. For me, no, I don't really kit bash too much.
There's Rabid Infusion. At the start of the fight phase, a Death Guard unit with 2 character models attached can fight first. That wouldn't be usable on Terminators, as it's not possible for them, but could be used on either Poxwalkers or Plague Marines with character combos. And this one, it may be less
fight first.
Foul Blightspawn a bit. As
yeah, wait. Yeah, doesn't Foul Blightspawn already have fight first? Why would you care? What? I guess you could do like Lord of Poxes and Biologist Putrefier. Okay.
On tap whenever you need it. That feels like a really good draw to having some properly buffed up Plague Marine combos jumping out of Rhinos and dealing big damage. For 1 command point, there's Mobile Vector.
Yeah.
This one maybe feels a bit more niche. A Death Guard character not leading a unit can join a unit that he could lead and is in coherency with. I feel like you're just not likely to get too much chances to use that, really. I just can't see why you wouldn't take units that have leaders in this detachment, given all the good stratagem access. And sometimes you might not even want to have them join on again. There's a lot of value to having small little units running around doing things. Finally, for 1 command point, there's Death's Heads. This one's a Biologist Putrefier specific one. You nominate one of those that hasn't shot yet in the shooting phase. It's sort of like the grenade stratagem to nominate a unit within 8 inches, I guess, as he throws some Death's Heads at them, and then until the start of your next turn, that unit's afflicted by all 3 plagues.
That's cool.
-1 to hit, -1 to move.
Man, they really were cooking with this codex so far.
Maybe could be a draw to have a Biologist Putrefier or 2 in the army. I feel like it's maybe hard to get great value out of literally all of those debuffs at the same time.
You need some great stuff. You can buy kits from different Skitarii kits with the Rangers. Yeah, I've seen some really cool kit bashes with that, Mike. We have a lot of agency.
As opposed to an extra 2 debuffs that might not be super relevant. Overall, though, I feel like the stratagem section of this one's really quite a strong one. Big leader-led units are some of your most dangerous ones in Death Guard. The Fight's First one is really good. Critical hits on a 5+, seems like that's maybe one of the ones to build around for the Lord of Contagion, or the Malignant Plaguecaster potentially. +2 toughness is really nice, and the Malignance Magnified is another great damage dealer that feels like it's not quite as good as the Blessings of Filth one, given it costs 2 CP, not 1. Finally, for the enhancements for all these Pestilent leaders, first up we've got a slightly fun one called Final Ingredient, when a Biologist Putrefies a unit.
The Anarchist Scoria? I don't know that model. I'll have to check it out after.
It kills an enemy character in melee. You basically harvest that character for the final ingredient of your plague, apparently. And then from then on, you choose 1 additional plague. And then from then on, all enemy units in the army that are afflicted army-wide, they're also affected by that plague. So you basically get another army-wide debuff on the go, which is really quite a big deal. Definitely seems like an interesting one. I feel like gambling on and trying to take down an enemy character and your opponent allowing
you
that
have
to
to kill an enemy character, huh?
There's plenty of games where it's just not really going to happen. So I think you can definitely argue to save points for things where it's going to be more reliably used. For 15 points, there's Visions of Virulence. A plague caster causes an enemy unit to be afflicted when they make them enfeebled for their psychic debuff ability. I guess one extra way to hand out afflicted keywords if you want to, or very powerful in this attachment. Though I guess if he's leading some Plague Marines, they'd also be able to do that just with their standard shooting. For the Plague Surgeon, there's one called Needle of Nurgle, which is listed at 25 points. A Plague Surgeon can restore D3 models to a unit rather than 1. That's really quite a big difference. I think that's well worth paying if you are taking one along. The one model always just felt a little bit on the borderline side. This could actually make him worth it for the medic sort of role, and perhaps a big unit of Plague Marines could be a little bit more likely to survive. Now they're toughness 6 rather than T5. You're restoring some slightly more valuable models. Finally, we've got one for the Lord of Poxes called the Cornucophagus. I don't know whether that's a blend of cornucopia or sarcophagus or esophagus or something, but basically the upshot is that the Lord of Poxes chooses 1 plague, which is always on for Nurgle's gift for him specifically. And you get this in addition to any others active. Means that you could always
the
have
character enchantments are really strong in this one.
Being -1 to hit if you're using the extra AP one quite a bit.
Yeah, you basically give him Typhus. You're like 35 points, you get Typhus's aura. Sick. Well, Typhus is -1 to hit in any range, but beware, I heard the Lord of Pox has the most dangerous weapon. Shut up. I remember seeing that and being like, really? 8 -2/2? That is the thing we're scared of? It's just a fucking power fist. Oh my god. Belisarius has so much identity and is so expansive that I don't touch him. Yeah, no, you can kit bash call like a fucking like a motherfucker for sure.
it does seem like a very nice boost, but also at 35 points, that would be quite a big ask as well. Overall, I feel like this one does look like an interesting detachment. I think the detachment rule is okay, but maybe doesn't add quite as much strength as you might expect. The real strength feels like it's in these stratagems for me, in particular that enormously big damage one, critical hits on 5s. The +2 toughness is nice, and threatening to fight first. For the points cost listed, those enhancements all look maybe okay, as opposed to super standout to me. Onto the tanks and demon engines next though, and here we have Mortarian's Hammer.
Oh,
I think it was always likely they'd get a tank and demon engine focused one, given how many demon engines they have access to. The core rule for this one is one that helps out shooting via a miasmic bombardment, and it basically makes a number of units automatically afflicted at the start of the battle round, chosen out of units that are at least 12 inches away from your units or further. At 1,000 points or incursion you get 1, at 2,000 points or strike force you get 2, and at onslaught you get 3. Quite nice that it scales per battle size. Probably the most obvious thing for a big tank and vehicle army will be getting extra AP against all those targets. That could mean that you could have units firing from quite a long way away and get that debuff against the enemy. And the -1 toughness might help a few big heavy.
Does it last for the entire game? Makes at the start of the battle round, okay. Until the end of the battle round. Oh, you do it every battle round. Okay, I thought it was at the start of the game you select 2 and that's it. So you just have like an initial bombardment. That's not bad.
Weapons profile.
So basically you get to spread your bombardment anywhere. I'm glad that it's not. I feel like it would have been like as long as you have a vehicle unit on the fields. I don't know why, but I would expect GW to do some stupid shit like that. Antibacterial. So what do I think of Secretary as models in a unit as a game? I think it would be cool, but it doesn't solve the problem that AdMech has, unless they made them like mega elite melee. You know what I mean? But then they'd be contending with Ruststalkers and Fulgurites, and I feel like, I don't know. I just don't feel like we need more infantry, and if we do get infantry, we need something tough, like real tough. So, they're giving every God-aligned faction of vehicle detachment where Death Guard are the only dudes with actual unique vehicles. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I count Soulforge as a unique vehicle simply because you have like Venom Crawlers and shit. I know those are generic, like Chaos Undivided, but it seems like they're kind of getting rid of them across a lot of armies. Like I think Emperor's Children only has Mauler Fiends. I think World Eaters has Forge Fiends and Mauler Fiends, and that's even no Venom Crawlers and stuff. So I know they're all kind of pulling from CSM, but I like to consider that CSM has like their own in that regard, because it's like that's their origin. You know what I mean? But yeah, like Emperor's Children having the vehicle one, I guess it's more transports, but it was kind of like okay. I still think that Death Guard has some of the coolest vehicles though, like Fetid Blight Drones and Plague Burst Crawlers. I'm counting on the units made from the ordinary combat servitors. If you're talking about like the kill team, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think they're going to be a utility unit, not anything, you know, that is groundbreaking.
I would hurt them better as well. Otherwise, if AP isn't a super big deal, then I guess the advantage will be -1 to hit on a few chosen units, making some big enemy firebase units not quite as effective as they'd normally be. It does seem handy enough if you are building around ranged firepower. For the stratagems, first up we have Font of Filth. You've got to love Death Guard stratagem names, haven't you? This one gives you the assault keyword for vehicle shooting attacks, handy enough to have in a tank focused detachment. Sometimes you will just need to advance to get lines of sight or range on the enemy, or you might need to get to an objective desperately and not really want to give up your shooting to do so. In an army going heavy on vehicles, it's definitely going to see play. Could be nice for Mephitic Blight Horrors with their multi-melters in range as well. For 2 command points, we've got Blighted Land. This one's a big investment one, where I guess you blast a terrain piece full of pestilence. You nominate 1 terrain piece within 24 inches and visible to one of your vehicle units, and until the start of the next turn, enemy units are all afflicted while they're within 3 inches of that feature. That has the potential to hand out contagions to an enormous area of the board. At the same time, it's a big 2
CP.
I feel like it does have a bit of overlap with the detachment rule. You're already going to get the afflicted benefits on your favourite 2 units at 2,000 points. I'm just not sure that handing it out to a bunch of lesser targets is going to be worth that command point investment. For 1 command point, grind, I
mean, if they're holding in and just like fucking hiding in one building, then it's nice, but otherwise...
units to move through terrain features, either in the movement phase or charge phase, so basically means that you can't get pinned back behind ruins too easily. Again, just a useful one to have as a movement option for an army going very heavy on the blind.
Only GW added units from the Horus Heresy to 40k, it would have been fucking beautiful.
For 1 command point, there's Drawn to Despair. That one's a single unit shooting buff.
We need something like they're getting over in Horus Heresy, in my opinion.
Unit within the opponent's deployment zone. I guess in theory that could be good for Plague Burst Crawler indirect fire if you really wanted to hit something hard. I feel like most of the Death Guard vehicle units maybe don't have quite enough threats just individually to really justify that though. It could add a bit of damage, but maybe not quite as much as you'd hope for 1 command point. If anything, it could be better on things like Blight Lord Terminators. This one isn't actually vehicle locked, unlike most of the rest of them. For 1 command point,
it's not.
This one's done in the enemy command phase, and 1 vehicle unit nominates an objective objective marker that it can see, and then enemy units that are on that objective and are afflicted must take a battle shock test, so basically gives you at least some chance to deny your opponent that objective if they happen to fail the test, and then they can't score it at the end of their command phase. It also could potentially be one way to prevent stratagems happening. It's definitely on the unreliable side though, as there's a good chance they just pass the test anyway. Finally,
they just pass the test and you burn a CP.
And this one's a -2 to charge this vehicle unit this phase. That could be really quite big if it's a sort of medium to long charge. If this ever makes the difference between a combat happening or not, then you might well just save the vehicle then and there. For a lot of charges though, there is at least some chance the opponent just
I like these like minus to charges. When CSM first came out and what was it called, the Fellhammer Siege Host, they have a strat called Siegecraft and it does the same thing, -2 to charge, and it's fucking awesome. I love the -2 stuff, especially if when like it's 1 CP, it's very simple. It's not some fucking bullshit that you have to like hit an enemy with a shooting attack before. Kind of like, what's the name of these guys? Our Electro Priests. Like they have to get within like what, 6 inches with their electroshock gauntlets to get -2 to movement and charges. And it's like, that's great, but I'm also within 6 or within 8, whatever the range. No, I think it's 12. In which case, it still doesn't matter because you do it in your shooting phase. Let's say their move is 6, but now they only move 4. They still have a pretty decent charge. So, I don't know.
Way, or still manage to pass regardless of this. Still though, definitely a good option against longer charges. Maybe things like the 7 or 8 inch charge mark can make the chances way less likely, or could near guarantee that you're not going to get charged by a unit that just deep struck next to you. Overall, I don't feel like the stratagems are enormously standout for this one. There's several that you could see just coming up with use from time to time. I think the 2 movement ones are quite nice. Advance and shoot and move through terrain. And rerolls against things in the enemy deployment zone could be interesting enough. At least that's fairly reliable damage if you have targets. The last 2 could be alright, but both feel a little bit situational and are both a bit unreliable in their own way. Finally, we've got the enhancements for the Demon Engine attachment. The Eye of Affliction is 20 points printed, and this makes the ranged weapons of the bearer's unit ignore cover when targeting an afflicted unit. The 20 points, that maybe seems a bit on the niche side.
These
are the best ranged
the
weapons.
Thanatars, yeah, they look sick as fuck.
Torrent attacks, I guess.
Ranged weapons ignore cover for bearer's unit when targeting an afflicted. Eesh, yeah, no,
might be okay on Blight Lords or Plague Marines in a pinch, perhaps. For 10 points, Vile More Blight is a buff in range to the Plague Caster's attack, plus 12 inches to his Plague Wind range in your shooting phase only. I guess that's to stop you from watching it at an extremely long distance. That attack's perhaps a surprisingly punchy shooting attack. Could be alright to give him more options, though I feel like quite a lot of the time he's going to be quite...
I don't think the problem is that we need new models, more like our existing models. Yeah, no, 100%. I 100% agree with that. The issue with that is that we only get those changes once, maybe twice, and we've already gotten our 1 and it wasn't enough. So we can't expect GW to continuously rewrite our army. It's just not something they're gonna do. They're gonna just cut their losses and say that this was a bad addition for AdMac, basically. So
happy shooting at something close up delivered out of a Rhino if that's what he's being used for. For 15 points, we've got a Shriekworm Familiar. This one's a 0 CP Overwatch for the bearer's unit once per battle round. This one certainly seems good for things like Foul Blight Spawn or a Malignant Plaguecaster and their units. Could be alright for most shooting units, including Blight.
Oh yeah, you basically bring back a CP and get free Overwatch every single battle. That's pretty good. Will prevent you using Overwatch elsewhere. That's a good point. But I feel like if you're taking this enhancement, you know that you want to like prioritize Overwatch with them. So it'd be cool if it lets you do double Overwatch. A man can dream, 100%. Yeah, we'll see.
Night Lords, given all the lethal hits that you can get, it will prevent you using Overwatch elsewhere, though. If you use it here, you don't get to do this in addition to other Overwatch. That one maybe feels like one of the slightly better ones to me. Finally, for 20 points, there's Tendrillus Emissions, which feels like it's the one that's best synergy with the actual vehicle units. The Lord of Virulence gains the lone operative when they're within 3 inches of Death Guard vehicles, and then vehicles within 3 inches of him that shoot a unit that's visible to them.
Oh!
Roll wound rolls of 1.
Whoa! So he's just like, theoretically, he's like a better fucking, what's the name of this guy? An Engine Seer.
Landing a firebase, you can make a trio of bloat drones with blight launchers shoot.
What do you think of the idea to add Dark Mechanicum in 11th? My wallet doesn't like the idea, but I think it'd be cool. The thing is that they're probably going to handle it half-assed like they have with every single army they've released so far. Thankfully, they have something more to pull from, but I don't know if that's going to take away from CSM, like if they're going to get rid of all the demon engines and stuff, which I wouldn't want, right? I would want CSM to keep demon engines. I don't know. I think that Soulforge Warpack was a really cool detachment, and basically all you really need to represent Dark Mechanicum. If anything, I think that the cooler thing would be is to make like a Soulforge Warpack that is more Dark Mechanicum coded, and then add more like Dark Mech models, like a Lord Discordant sort of. The Grubsmith.
Two very hard indies, re-rolling hit rolls and then re-rolling wounds of 1 with quite a punchy profile. That one feels like one of the more interesting ones on paper to me. Overall, definitely some interest here. Feels like the detachment rule in itself is one of the best things to add reliable value, and the add afflictions to a couple of units, no questions asked. The detachment rules are good for movement and occasionally a bit of damage maybe. The move through terrain could be handy enough for Death Guard transports delivering playcasters or shooting units maybe too. And for the enhancements, probably a free Overwatch and the sort of Tech Marine style Lord of Virulence feel like some of the better ones. Feels like tank heavy armies could still do well with the Vectorian one though maybe. Next up, we've got the Terminator flavoured detachment for the Death Guard, and this one's called the Death Lord's Chosen, and this one's themed around Death Guard elites and Terminators led by characters. Certainly looks like one of the strongest if you want to run Terminator heavy forces, maybe rivaled by the Fly-Blown Host potentially. The core rule for the detachment is Deadly Vectors, and interestingly enough, this one's a damaged one that affects a...
So YouTube is telling me that, like, the resolution is fucked and I need to change the video resolution. Does it look fine to you guys? Because it looks fine to me. Just want to make sure before we continue. That's something that I have to fix. Well, I can't fix it while I'm live. I'm going to do it afterwards, but let me know. I see them sell an upgrade kit to be done with it. Maybe. They've kind of leaned away from upgrade kits, haven't they? I haven't seen a new one in a while. Well, I guess there is the, what's the name of this shit? The Grey Knights one that they just released for the baby carrier.
Afflicted units. In your opponent's command phase, you roll a 2d6 for each afflicted unit, and if the result is 6 or less, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. And if the enemy happens to be below half strength, then you get -1 to that roll.
Oh, that is cool. I love Death Guard Terminators in particular are like probably the coolest and most unique. The idea that like you can get stuck in on somebody and just continuously deal damage. This is what I wished Death Guard was like. Like I like the whole debuff stuff, but I also like that slow poisonous tick. And this kind of sounds like it would be that, like, every command phase, it's like, hey, these Terminators that have been in your face, they're gonna, you know, kind of spew bile at you. That's cool. I like this. This is really sick. 2d6, suffer d3. It's not great. Maybe you're only ever dealing 1, but it's not bad. Each afflicted... Oh, so you don't even have to be in combat with them. It gets stronger as the game goes on. You get 9-inch range and stuff. Okay.
Will trigger on a Holy 7 or less. Usually that's going to mean that every afflicted unit gets a 42% chance of taking d3 mortal wounds in their command phase, going up to 58% if they happen to be below half strength. This one isn't really quite so Terminator focused, though I guess gives you some good incentive to push your units up into the enemy army.
It's also kind of nice because I would have wanted it to be my command phase so that I can then, you know, say if I was stuck in with a group of like guardsmen or something and then you 2 survived and then at your command phase they blow up, right? So then you can start to move, which would be really cool. But I also like the opponent's command phase because say, I don't know, there's a guy that's like out OCing you and then you blow him up, you could deny a point that way. But that seems less likely. So I think I would have liked it better to be your command phase, but I can see this somewhat helping out because at the end is when it's points are scored.
Make sure that lots of them are staying afflicted for as long of the battle as possible, as if you do they'll be taking a whole bunch of damage and might even potentially put some units in a position where they're wiped out before they score an objective, or have to test battle shock before they score an objective, both of which could be a bit annoying.
If you could add any unit or change any unit, what would it be? I would want them to add the... I forgot what they're called, but they're like the... They're not phalanxes, they're the other ones. The ones that kind of look like Castellans with the circular blades. I would want them to add those guys. As to what I would want them to change, I think they should give an extra attack to a Fulgurite Priest. That'd be nice. And then probably give them the Line Breakers ability back, the Electroshock, where if they charge in, they start dealing mortal wounds. Because they're more likely to get more things into engagement range than something like, say, Sulphur Hounds, which right now has Line Breakers. I think that's what I would want. I like Fulgurites a lot, but they're just not it. I also think it'd be cool if they added back Deeply Sunk Talons to Skystalkers, like that things have to take like a test before they fall back to see if they're able to. At least that way it's not like just having to spam them and have them die, but like, hey, you're stuck in here with me. They'll continue to fulfill the purpose of just hamstringing shit, but you know, at least that they will be encouraged to do that, right? Instead of just like standing out there dying and then seeing if they can make it in and then dying. GW releases Dark Myth as a third new army in the lore. I would want them to expand on the armies that already exist before they add Dark Mech, to be honest. As much as I think it would be cool, like I said, I think Soulforge kind of fills that niche. I think maybe adding more ad mechy units to CSM would be cool, as to be like, you know, kind of how they have the cultists, then they'll have like the more mechanical ones. But I would want them to make Votan better and make Emperor's Children better. World Eaters, they should really just give them their own fucking Terminators that aren't 8 bounds. Things like that. They should really expand the ranges of everything else and actually make them dedicated finished armies before they start going out on and adding an entirely new range and then never fucking touching it again. That's my opinion. Kind of like what they did with the crew, but even the crew could use some help right now, so because they nerfed the shit out of the rules.
For the stratagems though, and this is where the Terminator synergies really come in, basically all the stratagems are locked to Terminator keyword units. It's mean you want to go really heavy on the Terminators if you are taking this. First up, for one command point, we've got Blooming Pestilence.
What do you think of Belisarius from 9th edition? Was it better than the current one? Yeah, it 100% was. As to if it's efficient, right? Because like Call was also a lot more expensive back then. The only reason you take Call now is because he's just an efficient battle line aura. That's it. So you can argue that he's better for, like, say, competitive play because he's allowing you to spread the aura a lot farther, and that makes him better than 9th edition. But in terms of raw stats in a vacuum alone, I think Call in 9th was better. Yeah, 100%. He was able to give so many rerolls out to shit. So
the start of any phase, I feel like first thought for that one could be to hand out the detachment rule on a few more things that wouldn't be affected by it otherwise, if that makes a difference. Though it could be good for both the Terminator variants, Blight Lords getting their strength and AP buff, or maybe
this with 3 units of Termi sounds funny. You can go 6, you can go 3 Death Shroud and 3 Blight Lords.
Grim Reapers, that allows you to reroll hit rolls against enemies that aren't monsters or vehicles. That's quite a solid damage boost in the fight phase there. Feels like it's maybe a little bit more relevant for the Blight Lords versus Death Shroud that hit on 2s anyway. Maybe just a touch frustrating that you can't use it against monsters and vehicles, as they be the exact things that you normally want to.
That is a point. It's not as good with Death Shroud because they already hit on 2s, but you could fish for 6s with this if you're fighting something that's relatively tough and still infantry. So there is that. Plus 3 to contagion range is pretty sweet. Fight on death on 4.
Maybe even fishing for some lethal hits with Death Shroud could certainly make Blight Lord scary enough though. For one command point, there's Undying Spite. That gives you fight on death on a 4+ if you've not already fought for your Terminators. Always useful to have for any sort of melee focused unit. And Death Shroud Terminators seem easily threatening enough to justify that on. And the sort of unit that might trigger a big enemy mainline damage dealer charging into them to try and wipe them out. Potentially that could be pretty big. For one command point, there's Signal Pox. This one's a Lord of Virulence specific one, doing a bit of commanding of the ordnance. In the command phase, you can select an objective within 30 inches and visible to a Lord of Virulence. And until the start of the next turn, enemy units within range of that objective are afflicted. Again, could be good with both Terminator's data sheet rules, Blight Lord shooting or Death Shroud, trying to land close and charge things. They're pretty good for other things as well, maybe amping up some Plague Burst Crawler firepower, paired with the Lord of Virulence special rule. For one command point, there's Mortarian's Teachings. That gives you assault and heavy keywords for Terminator's weapons shooting. I guess in theory, that could be a really big unit of Blight Lords where you might be able to justify it. I feel like the heavy part of it is unlikely to ever be too relevant. You just want to be moving them as fast as possible. And if they can't charge the Terminators, then maybe the assault keyword could be worth the investment. Just seems like it could be a bit borderline value for the damage output on a unit of 5 though. Finally, we've got Sickening Impact for one command point. Terminators on the charge get 1 mortal wound on a 2+ for every model that they can end with an engagement range. So basically sort of Terminator tank shock pretty much, though you're unlikely to get 2 really big numbers rolling at that just due to big bases, mainly screening each of them for engagement range.
Yeah, they're way too
take
big.
6 mortal wound maximum out of it, but that could easily be good for something like 3 or 4 mortal wounds if you can get a fair few in. I guess in particular that could help Blight Lords take down tough stuff.
I think if it was D3 mortal wounds on a 3 up to a max of 6 would have been better because you're realistically not getting that many into engagement range.
Overall, some fairly good Terminator support there. Fights on death, boosted contagion range, and handing out contagions on objectives for Lords of Virulence all seem pretty handy with their data sheet rules, and 2 ways to get a bit of extra damage in the fight phase, re-rolling hits against non-vehicles or the tank shock style one. I feel like most of them seem like solid value, but maybe not crazy standouts. Finally, for enhancements, they're all locked to the...
I think it would have been better if it said eligible to fight, because engagement range is 1 inch from the model's base, but say like you have a Terminator and then a Terminator behind it that's eligible to fight through like fight rules, it might not be it's going to be farther than an inch away because of the base size. So if it was eligible to fight, then it'd be a lot better in my opinion. You could more realistically get them in.
Again, so that's the Lord of Contagion or Virulence. The face of death is 10 points.
Also, it says to a max of 6, like on a 3 up, was it? 2 up. On a 2 up, yeah. So you'd have to get all 6 of them to connect because they only come in squad size of 6s to the best of my knowledge. The real fun thing was Belisarius Moving Castle of Death. Yeah, Call's Moving Castle, my beloved.
Engagement range, trigger battle shock at the start of the phase. Not really quite so great in my opinion there. Vile Vigor
10 points is not bad
printed.
though.
It gives you +1 movement and re-rolling advance rolls for the bearer's unit.
These aren't great, but sometimes they can be. Like, the whole reason that we like infiltrators so much is because you can heroic intervention and then try to force a battle shock test at -1, and then that can stop them from scoring points the following turn. It's any fight phase from the looks of it, and that can cancel out some, like, say, World Eater's Fight on Death or something like that, right? It's not the worst, in my opinion. It is very swingy, especially because there's no modifier to it. But 10 points, man. Like, this isn't something that, like, you are prioritizing, right? It's just kind of like, oh, I have 10 points left, fuck it.
Units. I guess that means that you could have 6-inch moving Blight Lords advancing a big distance, at least fairly reliably.
Unless this happens, yeah, rerolling advances and +1 move for 15, that's cool.
But with the advance and shoot stratagem, I don't think that's too bad, but at 15 points maybe just feels a touch on the borderline side. The Warp Rock Talisman is 30 points, and this one's a fun return to reserves for a Terminator unit once per game at the end of the opponent's turn. If you're not in engagement range, this one could be used for, say, some Death Shroud starting on the board. If your opponent goes first, then potentially that could allow them to do a first turn Deep Strike and charge if you'd like to. I guess you might have a bit of a difficulty getting units within contagion range, but if you could, then that could get Death Shroud into combat near guaranteed right from turn 1, which is kind of interesting. I guess maybe pair with some Poxwalkers infiltrating up into the mid-board for that. And finally for 20 points, there's the Helm of the Fly King, and while leading a unit, they can't be shot at greater than 18 inches away. That seems like quite a nice one for a foot-slogging Terminator unit. Just very problematic for such a big, scary, and durable unit.
20
just
points
not being
too.
able to be interacted with over that distance, and could give enemy firepower problems deciding whether or not they want to get close to the scary Terminators or remain at a safe distance. After the enhancements, I think I like these two the best. Returning to reserves and shenanigans like that are always quite fun, and the 18-inch can't be...
Favorite model from HH or 40? I don't know that model that you're talking about. I haven't seen it. I'll look it up in the side monitor real quick. Favorite model, huh? Probably Call. I mean, the infiltrators are my favorite, like, in terms of how they look and everything, but I really like those, like, Castellans or whatever that I was talking about in Horus Heresy. I forget what they're called, but I do like how they look. Oh, the Scoria unit does look really nice. Holy shit, you're not kidding. I don't like the face too much, but it does look cool. What are those things called? Horus Heresy Mechanicum robots. But okay, the Thanatar Salix Siege Autom. No, that's not the one. That's the one with, like, the long head. I'm talking about the one with the short, stubby head. What are these things called? I'm seeing a bunch of pictures of them, but I don't see their fucking names. Oh. Castellix Battle Automata. I like that one a lot. That one looks sick as shit. I would love something like that in 40k. Okay.
I'll be short thing. That's a pretty big deal on such
kind
a
of sad they look like Skitarii Hoplites.
There's a fair bit of interesting value here. I guess it is really tying itself in, leaving the Terminators
Skitarii
to be efficient
Spartans are
data
pretty
sheets
cool.
that you'd
Yeah,
want
they're
good
okay.
numbers at the heart of the army. Fingers crossed they'll give them a points cost that allows that. Finally, for the detachments, we've got the Allied Demon one in the Taliban Summoners, the themes all being about Nurgle demons, and perhaps having a bit of focus on the psychos that summon them in. As mentioned earlier, it's the only detachment that you can fill the Codex Demons data sheets in. The unit list is Rotigus, the Great Unclean One,
Yeah, I can kind
Nurglings,
of give a
Beasts,
shit
Plague
less
Bearers,
about
and Plague
this one.
Drones, and you can basically take up to half your points as these Plague Legion data sheets. At least half or more still has to be made up of the more regular Death Guard ones. The core rule for the detachment is called Reverberant Rancidity, and this one basically has Death Guard and Demons stand next to each other to make contagions go further. Plague Legions units get the Nurgle.
I do like when they talk about demons, I think it was the same in Emperor's Children, if I remember correctly. They do kind of, like, play off each other. I think that's really
Give
sweet.
special rule if they're within 7 inches of Death Guard. They don't have it normally.
I think the demons
Death
were the
Guard
same
gets
way.
an extra +3 inches to their contagion range if they're within 7 inches of Nurgle Demons, which means that provided you have a few of them around, if your army focus was on the Death Guard side of things, it'll basically mean 3-inch boosted contagions for this detachment, which really isn't too bad at all. Mortarion might quite enjoy that with his aura as well, getting 2+ mortal wounds on the go right from turn 1. For stratagems, first up there's a 1 command point one called Persistent Pest, and this one's basically a Nurgling Regeneration 1. You use it when a Nurgling's unit is slain, and then it returns to reserve at the starting strength when it was destroyed. You can take a maximum of 6 of them in a unit in this book. This one seems basically completely auto-use. Get a unit of 6 Nurglings, use them to run interference, move, block, or annoy enemies right at the start of the game, and then when they're inevitably eventually killed, you can put them right back in reserve to go and do it again. This one seems suitably strong enough that I don't see why you wouldn't do that in this detachment. For 1 command point, there's Clutching Corruption. Use this when you're attacking a unit
Throwers, like flamethrowers, like
range with a Death
flamers?
Guard unit and a Plague Legion's Demon unit, and it means that the Death Guard unit gets to reroll hit rolls. It's probably more standout on things like the Plague Marines hitting on a 3+ as opposed to the Death Shroud hitting on a 2, but certainly there it's really quite a punchy melee buff, particularly if you have things like sustained or lethal hits on the go. Perhaps if you had a Malignant Plague Caster and Biologist Putrefire in the unit, then those reroll hit rolls could get some serious amounts of lethal hits and sustained hits going on. For 1 command point, there's All is Rot. This allows your Death Guard units to shoot an enemy unit that's in engagement range with a Plague Legion's unit. For each wound that that enemy unit suffers, on a 5+, your Plague Legion's unit takes a mortal wound by some collateral damage. I guess that could mean that you could use a super durable unit like a Beast of Nurgle to tie up the enemy, and then you're not going to kill it with your own shooting likely. So it'll just regenerate any damage that you gave to it, so you can still tie things up and also deal damage to the enemy unit if that makes sense. For big things like a Great Unclean one as well, maybe could mean that you could shoot down some chaff infantry with.
We have them, they just suck. Yeah, they're not great.
They
should just make Sulfur Hounds a lot better in my opinion.
Big durable Nurgle unit, you'd have to weigh it up against just not spending the command point and falling the unit back if you desperately wanted to shoot the enemy though. Next up, for 1 command point, we've got Fleshy Avalanche. You use this on a Plague Legion monster.
That's a cool ass name.
One or not are just there, and they can move through terrain where they're making normal, advance, or charge moves this phase.
Ooh.
To prevent them being screened. Unless you're setting up and planning for it, though, you might still struggle to clear a terrain piece. They don't have the most enormous movement.
Great Unclean one just bursting through a wall.
1 command point, there's Avatars of Decay. And this one basically gives you the Contagions of Nurgle on a Plague Legion unit to make things afflicted within 6 inches, triggered in your shooting phase. I guess it means that you could have some Nurglings make units afflicted for your guns to light up. That seems like the best use of this one.
Yeah, you can have like infiltrating Nurglings just emit an aura where they're way in the fucking front and then just get the -1 save. Try to do like an alpha strike sort of there. Seems okay. We're getting more. The servitors look like they can take at least 1 flamer. Yeah, but it's only 1. I think he's talking about like a dedicated, like the sterilizer sort of, or the Sulfur Hounds. There's no reason why I will die on this hill. I've talked about it before. There's no reason why we need strength 3 flamers on fucking Sulfur Hounds. You mean to tell me that a giant horse dog hybrid robot thing that's the size of a man, that is basically just a giant flamer with legs, has less strength than the sterilizers? Because the sterilizers I think are 4. Like, what the fuck, man? That flamer should be at least like 5 in my opinion. It should be a heavy flamer. Like, the fact that it has shorter range too, I'm pretty sure it's like a fucking 9-inch range instead of the traditional 12, and it's like, how is this just like a worse flamer in every regard? Like, I get it, they have pistols, whatever, dude. Those pistols don't do fucking garbage anyway. So dumb.
Only going to matter at all when Plague Legion units are nowhere near the rest of your force. Finally, for 1 command point, there's Mire Slick, and this one gives you a chance to prevent fallback. Enemy units falling back from a Plague Legion's unit have to test leadership, and if they fail, they must remain stationary. The monsters and vehicles
Imperium's greatest are unaffected. Technological experts can't develop flamer stronger than 3. Bro,
you might force
so
enemy
dumb.
shooting units to remain in combat with a Great Unclean one or something, or have some infantry units.
What they should have, considering that they're like a fast mobile platform, right? What they should have is a rule that's like +1 AP when within half range. So then it promotes you getting that flamer to 6 inches, and then wants you to charge for the line breakers ability, right? Like, at that point they would be really scary, they would be really fast, they fulfill the purpose of being a cavalry damage unit, as opposed to something like the Raiders, who are more the speed utility unit, right? Like, that's the point. Like, Vanguards are more damage, Rangers are more ranged and utility, right? So if it had something like that, on top of the fact that you have Conquer, now you get this really strong flamer that has a lot of armor pen, but it doesn't have a lot of damage, and it's only 1 flamer per dog, right? Like, you're not running like a fucking unit of a 5 or 10, right? That are getting all like -2 AP. You're only running 3. You can push up to 6, but that's going to cost you points, and you have to get within half range and realistically try to kill something. Like, I think that would be way more interesting, because it's like, okay, do you get in? Do you try to kill something with these really, really armor penetrating flamers, and then try to bank off the line breaker ability to do this like burst of damage before they inevitably die, because we're fucking AdMac, right? But instead they're just like, no. You get a strength 3 flamer that sucks dick, and then you get these pistols that we're going to say is good, but they have blast, and this unit that has an ability that makes you want to charge in, we're going to give your pistols and your carbines blast, which is completely counterintuitive to what that unit wants to do. Like, that's why Sulfur Hounds are so fucking bad. They don't have a dedicated role. Everything that they want to do is just so counterintuitive to how they play. It's so stupid, man. Big Steel Sulfur Horse, 9 S3 AP -1. So dumb. Imagine if they were like AP -1, AP -2 within half range. Conquer pushes them to AP -3. That's really fucking strong. It's only 1 damage though, right? And that's like, okay, it's like a power sword basically, because power swords are -2, -3 if you're in Conquer, which you can already run on infiltrators, right? Like, it's not going to be that much stronger. It's just like a ranged power sword, and it's barely ranged at that. It'll be like a 6-inch range, right? And it's only, again, minimum of 3, maximum of 6. Like, so God damn it, bro. It makes me so fucking mad. I'm convinced the whole AdMech cracking open their ancient weapon storage vault thing is a pariah next to storyline that was originally supposed to be an excuse to introduce heresy robots to fornicate, maybe. Big no-no. We always need infantry to do everything. The almighty GWs. God damn it, bro. Don't remind me. You would think with how much they push Qatari, they would make fucking Silverhounds good. They're so bad. Like, there's no reason to take them. Why take them when you can just deep strike some fucking sterilizers in with higher strength values? Like, it's funny. Da Vinci Bat 12 S4. Yeah, like, they're just better. They have wound rerolls and everything on objectives. Like, at least then you could like say that it's a kind of scary profile, right? Increase the range to 3, increase the strength to 4, increase the AP to -1 if they're within half. They'd be fucking amazing. I've had 6 Sulfur Hounds on my desk all edition, and they will stay there until they get better. Yeah, yeah.
Fighting against a beast of Nurgle that they can't kill, and you can't shoot the beast of Nurgle because it's locked up, could cause serious problems, but the opponent could just pass the leadership test and the command points wasted. Overall, definitely some interesting stuff. Maybe a fair bit of it just feeling a touch on the situational side. Maybe the things that you could build around would be the respawning Nurglings and trying to line up big hit rerolls for Death Guard units fighting alongside the demons. Both of those could be kind of controllable. The rest feels usable enough, but maybe situational. Finally, for the Taliban, we've got the enhancements. Beckoning Blight is 20 points printed, and you give this to a Death Guard model and makes them a bit of a locus of summoning or something. Plague Legion's units arriving via Deep Strike can set up within 12 inches of them, and if they do, they only have to set up greater than 6 inches from enemies, so you get a nice short charge. Maybe feels most obviously good for delivering, say, Great Unclean One or Rotagus right to the forefront of the fight. Could be fairly nasty if
20
a
points
character
is pretty
piling onto
fat.
a Rhino to try and make sure that they can get to the best place for delivery.
Shut up,
For 10
shut
points, there's one called Fell Harvester, plus 2 attacks for a Death Guard model in melee. Could be nice on a Lord of Contagion, Lord of Poxes,
Wow.
or Demon Prince maybe. Hard to go too wrong there, particularly if it is just 10 points. Entropic Knell is 15 points printed, and this one's for a Great Unclean One. Enemy units within 6 inches have to test Battle Shock in the enemy command phase if they're below starting strength at all, so not just below half strength units. And when they take the test, it's -1 to the test, sort of like the Chaos Knight Army rule and detachment rule there. Feels like a Great Unclean One is a pretty good place to have that active on. It does feel like it's at least got the chance to be genuinely disruptive in the midboard. Finally, printed at 20 points, there's a Tome of Bounteous Blessings, and this basically makes a Malignant Plaguecaster buff Plague Legions units within 12 inches. Each time they test Battle Shock, they add +1 to the test.
They're really
When they
pushing
pass
the
tests, they
Plaguecaster,
restore
huh?
D3 wounds or D3 battle line models. Could potentially be valuable enough, though it's a bit random and depends on them surviving to take tests in the first place. I guess big chunky Nurgle things are a bit more likely to compared with most, if they could be in a position to support
Like the Lines of the
Great
Unspirit,
Unclean Ones or
get
Rotages or
+1
something,
wound if
and
they
that
are
could be
far
fairly
from your
annoying for the
units.
enemy at least. Again,
That'd
all these
be-
look at least kind of usable at first glance. If it's 10 points for 2 attacks.
That would be strong if they already didn't. If you're talking about the Sulfur Hounds having that, that would be strong if they already didn't have Strength 3 Flamers, because you're already wounding on 5s for most things. It's a great I wound on 4s. Like, okay.
On a character, and that seems a nice, cheap and easy one to include, and the 20 points one for close range melee delivery could be interesting enough, though I guess your opponent might well see it coming if they know you have the enhancement though. Overall feels like there's enough here to be interesting. It does kind of depend on the demon datasheets being pretty good in their own right though, even outside of the Codex that supports them more. I guess just for raw datasheet strength, the Nurgle ones in Codex Chaos Demons often tend to be some of the more valuable ones. Again, I feel like there's enough stuff here to be interesting, with big melee damage stratagems, boosted contagions, respawning Nurglings, and a couple of fun enhancements. Overall feels like they've done at least fairly well to add some.
Yeah, I like the
basically all
detachments.
in their own ways. Virulent Vectorium supports lots of units and particularly seems good for big stuff. Sticky Objectives isn't huge but helps a bit. Shamble Rot Vectorium is maybe the weirdest and feels like you're doing big board control things with Poxwalkers, which if you put low I'll certainly be. We have the datasheets. Some datasheets have been unfortunately removed, though given that the Emperor's Children lost some really cool things such as Hellbrutes and Predators.
Cultists, I mean, I kind of feel like Poxwalkers are they're cultists. I did take cultists as a Death Guard player. But I just kind of feel like you kind of didn't need them. You just take Poxwalk. Granted, I remember some people kind of used Plague Bearers in the role of cultists, and it doesn't sound like you can have them in every detachment now, so yeah, I mean, cultists didn't do much because all they had was Scout and Sticky. Well, I guess Sticky matters more. Right, they had Sticky, I think. I think Sticky matters more now that there's more than one detachment to play with. Because back in the Plague Company days, you already had it. And it was like, well, there's no reason for my cultists to have it, right? So, maybe. Generic Lord and Sorcerer. It seems like Lord of Pox got replaced, yeah. Sorcerer and Terminator Armor. That one fucking hurts, dude. That hurts. I love Sorcerer and Terminator Armor and Death Guard. They had like the whole -1 damage. That sucks. I'm not a fan of that.
It's not quite as bad as it could have been. Most of the Death Guard data sheets remain intact.
But I guess they have the Playcaster. But Playcasters aren't Terminators, so...
Death Guard cultists, they're just completely gone for the book. It seemed likely that they'd lose the ranged option, given that the Chaos Space Marines lost that, but they're just gone entirely. And if you want cultist equivalents, I guess it's Poxwalkers now. Seems a bit sad, as most of the Chaos Legions kind of have cultists and hangers-on in the lore. There's no reason the Death Guard wouldn't. I guess if you've got the models to run, I'd probably use them as less
Scatros is fucking worthless, dude.
There's 3 characters that have been removed. The generic Lords and the
He's just a body with lone op, that's it.
I guess it's updated with the Lord of Poxes, who's very much taking his role, and the Lord in Terminator armor. I guess you'd have to run as either a Lord of Contagion or Lord of Virulence. I guess the war.
And most of the time I'd rather not have fucking Scatros. Like, I think Techno-Archaeologist that's hidden behind cover does his job way better. Sure, you can have him out in the sides for like something like containment to do that secondary without getting shot off the board, but I feel like it just never fucking matters. Maybe it's just the armies that I face where I'm not getting sniped all the time by things that are able to shoot me across the field. But Techno-Archaeologist is like, hey, you can't deep strike here, and I get this control of this side of the board. Like, it's... I don't think Scatros is that much better than a Techno. And at least Techno can hold his own. He has a fucking power fist, basically, with that Servo Claw.
Perfectly. This seems the most logical thing to do there. Kind of a shame to lose the 2 tasks, as mentioned. And the other new one is the Feated Bloat Drone has been split into 2 data sheets. One with a heavy blight launcher, one with the other gear. Then we've got Demon Beasts and the Wing versions, Spawn, and a bunch of generic Chaos Space Marine tanks and demon engines. And the 6 demon data sheets, as mentioned. As ever with Games Workshop Codexes in 10th edition, worth mentioning that the printed points, which is an example, had a guard book.
Two men should be thrown on the board for being a waste of design development. Yeah. So it's crazy because the Caesarians don't have a leader. Like, they're giving leaders to things that don't fucking need them, and then they're not giving leaders to things that do. You know what I mean? Like did World Eaters really need another character? Did Death Guard really need another character? You know what I mean? Like, Lord of Pox being the replacement for a Chaos Lord, okay, it makes sense. But I don't really feel like that's much of a new model, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like, and then again, Caesarians really could use a new model, but instead we got a Lone Op, as if we needed that. I don't know. I feel like you just could have given Techno-Archaeologist fucking Lone Op and it would have been just perfectly fine. I only have him in the army because every one of my Skitari already have a Marshal, and I don't want to send Archaeologist out on his own. I mean, yeah, it's a valid point to have one. I just like Archeo. I think they're really, really good.
Lore. He'd been mentioned in previous Codex lore around 5 years or so ago, and basically his whole deal for the...
Also crazy that Lord of Contagion, the one that came out in the Dark Imperium box, is still not a model you can fucking buy. Like... It's so stupid.
Carrying a miasma generator on his
been 2 editions. He hasn't come out yet.
Plague weapon to layer out the foes of Nurgle, and it's essentially the updated Death Guard Lord on foot as the way to field him now. The model himself was well enough received, though Death Guard certainly have a whole host on characters.
Leader on Juggernaut with no Juggernaut still.
Around £26 or $42.
Can Lord Invocatus not lead Blood Crushers? I thought he could. Or maybe Blood Crushers are... Oh no, because Blood Crushers are writing our blood letters on them, and I don't know if they have access to that anymore.
Individually, after his out of the battle for
I have to check.
fairly
Oh, here we go.
For his damage output, he gets a standard issue plasma pistol, and then that great plague blade is fairly punchy at least. 6 attacks at strength 8, AP minus.
Devastating lethals, baby. We love to see it.
He has a bit of melee threats to a plague marine squad. With the save debuff active, he kills around about 4-ish intercessors when he's charging in, or about 4 wounds to either Terminators or toughness 12 vehicles. Then finally, for his special rules, he gets a plus 3 inches to contagion range for his personally, meaning you might want him to be towards the front of the unit, and then he gets a Shroud of Disease, which means that you can't shoot his lead unit by greater than 18 inches away. Overall, basically 3 things going on: 5 melee damage, boosted contagion range.
He's okay. I kind of crazy that he doesn't have the Lord ability to use the CP for free. I guess that's becoming more of like a CSM thing, which it's awesome on them. Chaos Lords fucking love free strat. But I guess Death Guard does have a way to get CP back with the Tally-Man, and he kind of seems like an auto take, unless they changed him. I don't know.
And protection from shooting. I guess they're all desirable things to have in a Plague Marine unit, and could be combined with other characters joining the same squad. He seems usable enough at first impressions. If you want to have a Plague Marine unit that goes heavy on the close combat, and you're not going to get something else more from one of the buffing Virion characters. Speaking of Plague Marines though, let's talk through the Death Guard squads. Plague Marines are still here, and their data sheet is probably more similar than it is different. They did get 2 good buffs though, going up to Toughness 6 and having a better special rule. Toughness 6 is kind of nice to make them a bit more resilient. They didn't feel quite as sturdy as they probably should do on the board. It won't help against everything, but things that are strength 3, 5 and 6 will all wound them less well now, and those are fairly common strength profiles. Otherwise, their special rule is
I do love Plague Marines, yeah, they're my kill team.
Range. So nominate one unit after they've shot that they've hit. That unit gets afflicted by your plagues until the start of your next turn. That's quite a good debuff rule, and it's basically Golem from the Hellbrute means that you could help out debuff some enemy
That
units
is
before you
really
shoot
nice,
them with
actually.
boosted AP or similar. Otherwise, I had speculated whether or not they might split the data sheet and try and make a shooty one and a melee one, but that's not the case. They're still the rather disturbing mesa profiles that they were before. Usually it makes sense to take a pair of heavy plague weapons and a power fist, and then a couple of special weapons of one sort or another.
Okay, so they still have heavy plague weapon, good.
And for other minor changes, light launchers have become a blast weapon with D3 shots, so they're a bit better against hordes. Power fists have their own profile, also with lethal hits, and that means the champions won't hits on a 3+ now. They've gained a rule for an Icon of Despair, with a 6-inch aura of -1 leadership, that model has to take a bolter, so you can't take good, more threatening gear on him. Probably not too worth it unless there's some specific combo that you're going for with another datasheet. Overall, still seem good though. Quite nice to see these guys get a bit more elite and have a more useful special rule.
Oh, if he's carrying an Icon, he can't carry anything else? That's whack.
I guess that Rhinos will be the preferred way to get them into close combat. Next up, we've got the unique Terminators. First up, the Blight Lords. These have had a bad time in the Death Card Index since 10th.
I know a lot of people are saying, like, what's the point of devastating wounds and lethal hits? They kind of counteract each other. Yes, for fishing, yes. But like, I also think that it's still a damage increase. You know what I mean? Like it's still a flat damaging. It's not like by much, and it's not like the flashy thing that you want. I think like definitely sustained and lethal or devastating is like the best combo, but it's things that get through that otherwise wouldn't. You know what I mean? So it's still pretty nice. I still like it. Blight Lords. I hope they made these guys good.
Started. Though finally Games Workshop has given them some good profile boosts. They're now
Okay.
5 inches, not 4. They've got toughness 7 rather
5
than 6.
inch move.
Both of those are helpful enough. The toughness 7
7.
only matter against things that are strength.
That's crazy. These things are as tough as our fucking as our Iron Striders.
So a bit niche there, but not nothing. Nice to see the Terminators not going into painful 4-inch move. Another small change for them is that they can be filled in 3s now if you want, like the Death Shroud. That's due to the option of the kits with the Lord Felthius and Tainted Cohort model sets. So if they go by their Codex points, it looks like the 3-man squad might be a little bit costlier per model than the 5.
Yeah, you don't want these guys
their good shooting weapons are locked out until you get to 5 of them too. Otherwise, 4 weapon changes. Their Bubotic Blades got a nice blow up. They went from 4 attacks at damage 1 to 3 attacks at damage 2, and they're just quite general purpose now.
Ooh.
Very good at killing standard sized Space Marines and pretty effective against Terminators, given they'd wound them on a 3. And you now no longer have to choose between different heavy weapons. You can take both a Reaper autocannon, a Plague Spewer, and a Blight Launcher.
Thank fucking God, dude. That was really annoying. How you can only take. I hate this shit about Terminators. It's like for every 5 you can take one of this and maybe one of that. It's just like I wish they would just, you know, like the Plague Marines where they just take fucking one of everything. Same with Arskatari where it's like you take one special equipment and then just take everything else. It makes it so much simpler for fucking list building. Sustained hits and lethal is a nasty combo 100%. Yes, it is.
Finally, when they're shooting, they get a good range damage boost. If they're targeting an afflicted unit, then you get +1 strength and +1 AP against that squad. The AP boost is particularly nice, and you could combine that with the Plague rule, so you could have things like a Blight Launcher hitting at AP3, or the same for the Plague Spear or Reaper autocannon. Overall, certainly seems like a solid boost for them. I guess it might come with a points increase. I guess we'll see by how much if so.
I don't like the fact that it's only shooting because they want to be pretty close. Well, I guess they don't actually. I don't know. I like the melee on Blight Lords, but I guess that they're distinguishing the Blight Lords versus the Death Shroud more as the range versus the melee, which is nice. But these profiles don't look like they're going to output much shooting anyway. Okay.
But nice to see them looking a lot more threatening both at range and in melee, and could be a more interesting unit for characters to join. A few of the character leading and shooting combos certainly seem like they could be.
It's a nice touch-up.
Well.
I like it.
Gets on well with the Flyblown host. Next up, we've got the Death Shroud
My
Terminators.
beloved
3
Death Shrouds.
powerhouse units in the army, 110 points for 3 of them, with some massive damage and defensive stats. They've seen a few similar changes, but also an interesting powerful special rule added in. They move 5 inches like the Blight Lords now, and have had a bit of a defensive rule trade-off. They lost the -1 to wound rule that they had.
They lost -1 a wound. Ugh. 4+ feel no pain. On the character? That's giving mad fucking Datasmith vibes. I don't know, man. -1 a wound was so fucking strong on them. Okay.
When a character was leading them, but they've now gained 4 wounds to compensate. I feel like that's made a fairly balanced trade-off.
They're 4 wounds? That sucks. That... Like, for everyone else, that sucks. Damage 3 weapons are going to have to do a heavy fucking lift. It's going to be damage 2 or nothing, man. Wow. Yeah, 4 is an awful breakpoint. T7, 4 wounds for everyone? That sucks. I still wish they had -1 a wound, but the 4 wound breakpoint. Yikes. Okay.
Off really. Tougher against some things, less tough against others. They still have placebook gauntlets for a bit of close range anti-infantry shooting, and then their mighty man reaper profiles. 4 attacks each, hitting on 2s at strength 8, AP 2 and damage 2, plus any plague debuffs you have on the go. It's just a very general purpose profile with lethal hits, and will
Hey, take it easy, nobody. Is another stream planned? Planned? No. I hardly ever plan my streams, just because I find time between my schedule and it's usually pretty last minute. The only time I plan streams is when I am doing like a battle report or something. But otherwise it's just kind of like I'm here. I might consider doing one for World Eaters maybe Monday. I think I'm off Monday. Yeah, maybe Monday. So 2 days from now. Because tomorrow I also have work. The only reason I'm on today is because I have to go to work a little bit later than usual, but maybe Monday. No promises, though.
take big chunks out of anything that they charge. The sweep profile on their Man Reaper was also changed around a bit. That's now 8 attacks that hit on a 3 at strength 4, AP -1, damage 1, rather than 6 at strength 5, AP 0. Again, that probably feels like it's a slight improvement overall, though not by a massive amount. They had 2 small changes, including characters being attached getting a 4+ feel no pain.
Sing Siege Deep Strike is pretty nice. I do like that. They can... Yeah, like if you're running like the Blightlord list... No, sorry, not the Blightlord list. If you're running just like Plague Marines are very incentivized of the fact that when they hit, they afflict something. Then you can just be like, "Hey, I tagged it. Now all my Terminators benefit from it." I like that. That's really, really nice.
So extra tanky there, and it's not going to be worth trying to snipe.
Joshua, I swear to fucking God, bro. Oh my God, who made them say that? Who was holding them at gunpoint and made them fucking say that? So stupid, man. Sweep attack now S4 -1 AP hitting on 3s. Oh, why? I don't know if they needed to do that. 8 attacks. They used to do what, 6? So you double the attacks for a little bit of like what, 16% loss. It's okay. I don't know if they needed to do that. Like, I would much rather just have 6 attacks and still hit on 2s. Okay.
Snipe them out, and they also get an Icon of Despair for an aura of -1 leadership. Their really big special rule change, though, was the Death Approaches one, and this basically means that they've got an extra easy way to get them into melee combat. When they deep strike onto the board, they still have to keep 9 inches away from any units that aren't afflicted, but any units that are afflicted with the...
I just don't... What I don't like about Death Approaches, right, is that when you're setting up 9 inches with a deep strike, especially like rapid ingress, right, you can hide behind cover. At 6, you're kind of setting yourself up to die. Unless they can't remove you, right? Because, like, say you rapid ingress, and then their shooting phase and fight phase happens, you're going to get fucked, right? If you're 6 inches away. Unless you're, like, planning on deep striking in your movement and just trying to get that charge. Like, straight up. Which I guess makes more sense. Actually, no, the more I think about it, the more I'm wrong. Yeah, take it easy, Cringer.
They only have to deep strike greater than 6 inches away from those guys, so if you've got a unit that's got that active from something else on the board, it's going to be very easy to have them just deep strike in and make a super close range charge. There are a few ways that detachments can hand out afflictions as well, or boost contagion range. Plenty of options for coordinating with other units to get them in close. Again, whether or not they're actually good
You're good.
on points cost, they are listed as a lot more expensive at 160 points per 3 in the Codex. They've definitely still got a whole bunch of good stuff going on. Huge defensive profiles, good damage, and a potential easy way to get to combat seem like a pretty nasty mix. And they seem like they'd be extra threatening with a Lord of Contagion as well, and his massive melee damage boosts. Poxwalkers were 50 points before, they're recorded as 60 points per 10 of them now, and again you can still take 10 to 20 of them in a unit. They have a similar sort of profile, they're toughness 4 with a 5+.
They can infiltrate!
Small arms fire fairly well, they move a tiny bit faster, going 5 inches rather than 4. They won't do very much in close combat.
Okay, they still have Curse of Walking Pox, that's good.
Hits, so might stack a save or 2, and they get their special rule for anything that they do manage to kill might become a Poxwalker. You get to add 1 Poxwalker model to the unit for each thing that you kill in close combat. It can also be joined by a couple more characters as well, the Noxious Blightbringer and the Malignant Plaguecaster. The really big change for their datasheet, though, is gaining the Infiltrators keyword.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Some Poxwalkers
That's
are most
awesome.
likely going to be also
I'm a
included
big
in
fan of that.
Army list now. Just having some cheap expendable chaff to push in the midboard, sit on objectives and force the opponent to deal with them, or even do first turn move block things, or first turn secondary objectives could be really good. I feel it's kind of appropriate as well, with the enemy having to slog through a horde of zombies to get to the actual Death Guard. I guess they could be handy for handing out some contagions early on if they can get close as well. Kind of nice that Death Guards still have an Infiltrators unit as well, now that most attachments aren't going to be able to take Nurglings. I guess we'll see what their endor points cost is. 60 points seems pretty reasonable for them, and not be too surprised to see them priced at a bit of a premium given the Infiltrate though. Lastly, for more infantry and squad style datasheets, we've got the Death Guard Chaos Spawn. Previously 70 points for 2 of them. They got another bunch of interesting datasheet changes. They got boosted from Toughness 5 to Toughness 7, so a bit more resilient to sort of small and medium arms firepower. They still have the 5+ feel no pain and 4 wounds, so will take at least a bit of taking down. They no longer regenerate though, so any damage that is landed on them will stay. They've gained the Scout keyword, which means along with the Poxwalkers, they're going to be the things that can fight for the midboard in the very early game. Again, all very appropriate to have the mutated monstrosities take the first blows. And
suddenly 100 Poxwalkers every. Yeah, right.
Units, they get a random number of attacks with Strength 5, AP 1 and Damage 2. So good threats to medium-sized units and sort of Space Marine style things. And then for a bit of fun factor, they also have ways to cause damage when they die. Their special rule has been replaced to Lethal Ichor. Each time a successful melee wound roll is allocated to the unit, you make a note of it, and at the end of the attack sequence, you roll a dice for each attack that was done so, up to 6d6, and for each 4+, the enemy takes a mortal wound. Suddenly means they could lose some quality models as they wipe the spawn. On top of that, it's kind of fun that they also get Deadly Demise as well, so there's a chance that a slain spawn might burst in a shower of pestilence. Overall seems handy enough as a fast-moving little unit, to act as an outrider and disruption with a little bit of melee threat. You probably wouldn't want many of them, but perhaps one unit or two could be alright.
Yeah.
Next up, and we've got the unique demon engines. First up, as mentioned, the feat of Bloat Drone has been split into 2 different datasheets.
That's weird.
The more standard one. The choice here is either the Plague Spitters or the Flesh Mower. The stat line of the Bloat Drone is the same as it was before. They move quite quickly at 10 inches with toughness 9 and 10 wounds. That was solid enough durability for the cost before, where they were 90 points, and could be a nice outrider unit that takes a bit of dealing with.
Yeah, I'd rather take these guys.
To push contagions forward. The Plague Spitters give you 2d6 shots at strength 6, AP 1, damage 1, with anti-infantry 2+, so really quite good at shredding hordes there. And the Flesh Mower is 10 attacks at strength 7, AP 1, damage 2, which can get a fair bit nastier when paired with contagions of Nurgle, particularly the extra AP one. They still get a special rule of falling back, shooting and charging. Overall, they still seem usable enough. Again, Deadly Demise D3 from...
So do they have the Flesh Mower and the Flesh Spitter? Or the Plague Spitter? Because if they have both, that's pretty fucking cool, actually. They're basically like mini fucking Death Shrouds. It looks like they do. It doesn't look like it's an option. So, Blight Launcher. Yeah, because the Blight Launcher becomes its own thing. I know they had to choose between Plague Spitter, Flesh Mower, and Blight Launcher. But if it comes like... Now it's just the melee variant, which is Flesh Mower and Plague Spitter. And now you have the range, which is the Blight Launcher. That's pretty cool. I always like the Flesh Mower profile. A little bit low on AP, but when you get the -1 save... -1 save... Plague. -227 strength. That's like a little bit better than... No, it is better than a Power Sword. And it's 10 attacks. Lethal hits, charge, and a turn in which it fell back. Yeah, so it could fall back, flame, go in. Yeah,
one,
nice.
Which is the only change. That could be nice enough for the auto-explode thing from the Virulent Vectorium. They are potentially the sort of unit that might be ranging forward and in range of a good bunch of enemy units fairly early. As a consequence of them splitting the datasheet in half as well, it means that you can now field 6 of these if you'd like. 3 Blight Launcher ones and then 3 of this datasheet. The Blight Launcher one is looking like a seriously chunky datasheet though, with some big firepower. It's got the same basic
one of the coolest looking demon engines. I like the Mephilic Blight Hauler just a little bit better. It looks derpier, like a lot stupider. Separated from regular datasheet, Blight Launcher far scarier, D6+2. What did it used to be before? Just D6? Oh, here we go. From 6 attacks, D6+2 from 6. Ew, less reliable. You can have the chance of having your shots, but you do get a lot more if you go above 3 or, sorry, 4. I don't know if I like D6+2 that much. It does have Blast, so there is that. AP -2 damage 3. Okay, yeah, that's pretty fat. Strength 10. Wow, so this is becoming like an elite killer. Interesting. Hey, Lex.
Melee, the same as the Plague Spitter one, but that Blight Launcher got seriously upgunned. It's D6 plus 2 shots at strength 10, AP 2, and damage 3.
I'm not the
Giving
biggest
you
fan of
6 attacks
D6,
at
but
strength
everything
8,
else
AP
looks
2,
really
and damage
good.
2, so more reliable numbers of shots, but no chance for extra ones with blast. And a profile that might kill Space Marines, but not really threaten light tanks or Terminators quite so much. This new profile is really quite punchy, and you could be wounding battle tanks on a 3+ if they're within the affliction range, potentially with extra AP as well. Its special rule is maybe a bit on the niche side, but if it actually destroys an enemy unit before removing the last model, all enemy units within 6 inches are afflicted until the start of your next turn. Could be relevant, might not be, and usually you can't absolutely guarantee that it's going to finish off something, but a small reward if you manage to, I guess. These things look quite nice alongside a Lord of Virulence now they've got a big scary blast weapon that could allow you to reroll hit rolls with those fairly murderous heavy blight launchers, and there's other buffs that you could.
True, and there was that one strat we saw. What was it called? Something generosity in the base detachment that lets you reroll attacks. So if you can take these in like multiples, I think they're usually solo units, but you could reroll the attacks on it. Maybe it's not. If they come individual, then maybe not so much.
Would put on them with things like ignored cover or extra AP available from some supporting vehicles, as we'll see. Points depending, these guys look pretty fun and threatening, though I guess you'd have to keep them screened as they've got blast weapons. Otherwise, though, quite a lot of big wins for the light demon engines, though, as Mephitic.
My boys, I love these guys.
The same basic defensive profile, though don't have fly, and they have the smoke keyword if you want to trigger that.
Wait a second, multi-melta has lethal hits. I guess their strength isn't that high for a melta. Fair enough. It's still silly as fuck. Deadly Demise D3. That's awesome. These guys want to get close, so, and they can because they're fast as fuck. +1 to hit and wound. Oh my goodness. Okay, so they went up apparently. Oh, chat. That is what we like to call a cat walking all over my goddamn keyboard. Oh, where were we? Right here. Okay.
That's been reduced to squads of 2, it seems. So again,
Emperor's Children, be seething, even grab mobiles. Yeah, who needs advance and shit? What's it called? Shoot and advance and all that fucking jazz when you have these guys.
Points are a bit more expensive at 110 points each, though as ever that might change. The Blight Horrors are sort of anti-tank destroyers. They get a missile launcher and a multi-melter, plus a smaller bile spurt to hit infantry nearby. Interestingly enough, the multi-melter on this guy and the Hellbrute both get lethal hits. Feels a bit weird to have lethal hits on that. I think for the vast majority of the army it's mainly representing plague munitions. Not exactly sure how that ties with a heat ray. This only makes the multi-melter punchier against tough stuff though, and their special rule helps with that even more. Their Tank Hunters rule got seriously better. You get +1 to hit and wound monsters and vehicles in the shooting phase now. That's really nice with the sort of mid-strength, strength 9 attacks, making them good against those targets. Previously the rule was quite a lot weaker. It was only a +1 to wound and only against vehicles, so it didn't include monsters. Overall they're looking pretty fun.
Oh shit! Yeah, they added monsters. It used to just be vehicles. Oh.
Doing Mortarian's hammer for making sure their targets are affected.
Yo, these guys are awesome.
Melters in range. Finally, for the big unique demon engines, we've got the Plague Burst Crawler. These were 180 points pre-Codex, and they're 180 points printed. They might go up, of course. It's a fairly chunky demon engine with 12 wounds, toughness 10, and a 2+ save. Not the easiest to take down. For stat line changes, it just drops to OC3 for some reason. They're not too big a difference there. Otherwise, its weapon profiles are fairly similar. The Plague Burst Mortar can fire indirect, D6 plus 3 shots at strength 8, AP 1, and damage 2. A bit better if you can get contagions on the target to give it extra AP potentially. Then otherwise, it can be paired with either a pair of entropy cannons or play spitters like the bloat drone. The entropy cannon's got a boost to their range, 36 inches. With their strength 10, AB3 and damage D6 +1. The only other small changes were the heavy slugger gaining lethal hit and the rot hail gun gaining a longer range. The biggest thing for the Plague Burst Crawler though was its special rule changing around. Previously when it shot something it handed out a battle shock test. Now instead of that it hands out a bunch of mortal wounds to things nearby, which seems better. You basically roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the target of the Plague Burst mortar. On a 6+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Oh, I thought it said around 3 inches around the model. I'm like, that sounds like garbage. Your shooting phase, roll 8 dice for the target in each. So it's basically like a blast. Like a real blast. Roll a dice for each target and within each unit within 3 inches on a 6+. Ugh. So if they're afflicted, it's on 5+ D3 mortals. Huh. It's okay. I think it works really well in that miasmic bombardment one or Mortarian's hammer, because then you can designate something as afflicted and then shoot it with the mortar. It's okay.
That includes the primary target themselves. On a 6+, they take D3 mortal wounds, and it's a +1 to the roll if that unit's afflicted by plagues as well. That could definitely be pretty punishing if the opponent obligingly bunches up a big formation for them to fire into.
Yeah,
kind of surprising that Games Workshop gives an indirect fire weapon a better damage kind of rule. In general, it seems to try and keep them niche for the most part. The Lord of Virulence could also buff them rather well, as he hands out reroll hits to blast weapons, which means that you could get around the no better than hitting on a 4+ special rule that Games Workshop gave them. Overall, looks like they're a bit improved compared with where they were before. I guess we'll see whether that comes with an increased points cost or not, though. In general, indirect fire weapons often tends to attract nerfs when they get good. Next up, we've got the Death Guard Hellbrute.
Oh, they kept the Hellbrute. Okay.
Codex, and printed at the same now. Fortunately, they managed to keep their Hellbrute, even if the Emperor's Children didn't. For stat line differences, they moved 7 inches rather than 6, which is a tiny bit faster now, though still not really all that quick for a unit that might want to get to melee. And had a few small datasheet changes beyond that. The autocannon going to strength 10, the plasma autocannon and melter all gaining lethal hits, and the Hellbrute hammer as a melee weapon hitting on a 3+, and that's a seriously punchy close combat weapon. 5 attacks at strength 14, AP 3 and damage D6 +1.
Damn. And it hits on a 3 now? Shit. Can't have shit in slash. Yeah, you can't. Gains +1 to wound on inflicted melee. Wait, what? +1 to wound inflicted melee's range and melee. Ooh. Holy shit. +2 attacks and melee weapons and model equipment. Yeah, that's pretty normal. So you could like have two Hellbrute hammers. So 10 attacks, S14, AP -3, potentially -4, D6 +1. But you're actually swinging, wait, 5, 7, 14 attacks. Terrifying. Yeah, that's scary as fuck. Interesting.
The Hellbrute had its special rule swapped around. Previously, it handed out contagions at range, but now the Plague Marines do that. Now instead
it's
of
just
that,
a matter of
you
getting him in.
Personal damage buff against afflicted units. You get +1 to wound against those, both at range and in melee. And then it lost the Twin Links keyword if you've got 2 melee weapons and its mortal wound impact hits on the charge. Instead of that, you get +2 attacks if you've chosen 2 melee weapons. So you could be going in with 7 attacks with that Hellbrute hammer if you go full on melee.
It's crazy. He doesn't need a fucking Datasmith, and he gets +2 attacks. He's a piece of shit.
Sort of slightly limited durability. A lot of it wanting to get into melee, but not really the movement to get there. It might be a bit on the niche side. Maybe it could be a bit more tempting in the Mortarian hammer detachment with that move through terrain sort of thing. That'd be quite a big deal for his threat range. Next up, for another great big punchy walker, we've got the
Defilers still here.
Defilers often seem to have been a bit more of a niche pick in 10th edition, it seems. The Death Guard one does get a few stat line improvements, though. It's now toughness 11 rather than toughness 10 with its big 14 wounds. It has quite an array of different war gear it can choose from. Most of that keeping fairly similar, though. The Defiler cannon gets lethal hits on its fairly general purpose profile, and then its melee is still probably the scariest thing about it.
Yeah, I kind of don't care for the
Defilers. Strength 16, AP 3 and damage D6 +1. It's going to be bad news for heavies that get caught in its claws. As a nice datasheet improvement, it's gained a stripped cover special rule. It just gets that in addition to its scuttling walker type thing that it had going on before. And it could make it interesting enough to support other Death Guard firepower, maybe a battery of those new bloat drones with the heavy blight launchers.
Yeah, but it's pricey as fuck just to get strip cover.
You'd have to get value out of that as well as its main damage and defense as well. Certainly seems like a solid boost if it keeps around about the same sort of points cost. Hopefully they don't wind up increasing costs as a result. Onto a few generic Hellspace Marine battle tanks though, and we have the 2 flavours of Predator. Their stat lines are the same as they normally are. Toughness 10 and 11 wounds with a 3+ save. Like the Plague Burst Crawler, they also just drop down a tiny bit to OC3. The Annihilator is the one that specialises in destroying tanks, usually fielded with a big single twin link last cannon shot at strength 14, and then sponsored last cannons plus some other bits on top. It's usually been kind of okay for anti-armor firepower, though not usually super standout. The change it got this time was it swapped out its reroll damage rolls kind of rule for a chance to deal mortal wounds after it's fired. You roll a d6 against a
After shooting in your shooting phase, roll 1d6 for 1 monster vehicle hit by the attack. On a 5+, deal 3, adding 1 if affected. Is that better than re-rolling the damage roll? I say no. But it is guaranteed damage if you do get that through. They're okay. I think I would much rather keep the reroll damage roll. Because it's only 1d6. If it was a d6 for every attack that connected, it might have been better. But it's just as long as it was hit. It's 1. So... yeah, I don't know.
the unit that it shot, and on a 5+, if it's a monster or vehicle unit, it takes D3 mortal wounds, adding +1 to that roll if it's afflicted. Overall, that feels like about a similar sort of trade-off compared with the rolls it had before, really. The reroll damage was good, but this can also just puncture some extra wounds onto the foe if needed, and both of them might not necessarily matter hugely in any one shooting phase. Overall, doesn't really seem to be enormously changed by this one. The Predator Destructor was a bit more of a Death Guard staple though, the same sort of stat line and usually taking las cannon Thompsons, but then backed up by an auto cannon, the base profile of which has been upgunned a bit. It's now 4 attacks to 48 inches, 6 attacks to 24, and now has to get strength 10, AP 1, damage 3 with lethal.
Gained lethal? I don't think it needed that, especially because this is a thing that kills infantry more than anything else. I mean, but they did change the rules, so maybe not. Swapped personal AP buff against infantry for giving AP to other Death Guard units. Wait, what? One non-monster vehicle unit hit by this vehicle is marked after shooting. Other Death Guard units get -1 AP. Okay. That's actually a lot better. Sure, you don't get the personal -1, but you give everything else in your army -1 against it. Crazy because this autocannon doesn't fucking one-tap Terminators, Death Shroud Terminators. Oh, 4 wounds is fucking wild, man. Holy. Alright, I like it.
Hits, gaining both strength 10 from strength 9 and the lethal hits, which it didn't have previously. It's not going to be quite so good against things like heavily armoured infantry though, as it no longer gets extra AP inbuilt onto its data sheet against those kind of things. Instead, it now maybe functions a little bit like a Sisters of Battle Castigator, handing out extra AP against targets that it hits, but only against things.
But I think it'll make up for it because of the auras being on every detachment now, and you're almost always going to take the Skull Squirm Bite or whatever the fuck that reduces their save. So it's like effectively -2 as long as something is near it. So, there's
things that aren't monsters or vehicles. So basically, after you've fired, nominate one non-monster and non-vehicle unit, and then the rest of your guns will have boosted AP against that for the rest of your army. Kind of depends on the foes that you're fighting there. Things like Terminators in cover, that'll be really quite impactful, but feels like without the extra AP to help out against things like that itself, it might just be a little bit less outstanding in terms of the damage dealing on its own. Maybe it might be pushing it to have maybe more like a single one of these supporting things like bloat drones perhaps. Next up for vehicles, and we've got the Death Guard Land Raider. It's all pretty similar to Land Raiders elsewhere. A big tough tank with 16 wounds, toughness 12, and a 2+ save, armed with some hefty firepower, 4 big hitting las cannon shots with 2 pairs of soul shatters, and some heavy bolters and other upgrade guns on the hull. Land Raiders are specialists at delivering things into melee with the assault ramp special rule.
So basically
able
no
to
changes.
move the tank, disembark the units out the front, and then still charge, averaging something like a 20-inch threat range or so.
I think the +2 capacity matters more for Blight Lords. Yeah, Death Shrouds, you kind of don't give a shit.
The units trying to get into their foe, and that's really quite a big deal for slow-moving Death Guard. The only major change for the datasheet is that it can now transport 14 rather than 12, Terminators taking 2 slots, so that means there's enough for 6 Death Shroud and a character leading them. I feel like that could be kind of interesting, but at the same time, the Death Shroud have gained that rule where they've got close deep strike charges if you can make their charge target afflicted, and they could still rapid ingress as well. So they do have other good ways that they could get into combat really quite reliably without having to buy a 240-point tank datasheet. As a result, I'd probably still guess that Land Raiders might well be niche for the Death Guard, but it could be that the value proposition between the damage defense and melee delivery could be enough to justify it. I don't think they're unplayable, but I guess at this point I might be a bit surprised to see them in too many competitive lists. The Death Guard Rhino has also had a rules change. These have generally tended to be in a lot of more optimized lists, cutting Plague Marines and character combos around the board,
We're not by
getting them where
10.
they need to be, and then adding to their threat range by the fact they can jump out 3 inches of it. For the most part, it's not changed too much. It still has a little bit of anti-light infantry kind of firepower. You can fire out the top hatch, which can be nice for some of the characters with...
They have fire support? What? Holy fuck. That is way better. Yeah, that is fucking sick. Especially because, like, yeah, Plague Casters have, like, flamers, basically. And, Plague Marines can carry, like, the Plague Spitters and Spewers and shit. Which auto-hit. Oh, that's awesome.
It can be a nuisance unit once its cargo is disembarked. The big change that this one got was its special rule, and now rather than regenerating a little bit, it actually does something useful for its unit when it jumps out. If you shoot the same thing as the Rhino, then the unit...
It's funny because I feel like the regenerating is more of a a Death Guard thing with like the whole, you know, being tanky and shit. And they're the ones that got fire support. Yeah, this is crazy.
Rolls in the shooting phase, nice enough for black launchers and plasma guns and things from the Plague Marines, but seems extra nice for any torrent weapon characters attached, things like the Foul Blight Spawn or the Malignant Plague Caster. That does seem like quite a good rules boost. It might well go up in points to reflect that, in the same way as the Emperor's Children one did when it got a more fun special rule. Overall, still looks like it'd probably be the most reliable way to get Plague Marine combos into battle. I guess that would be good news for people buying the Combat Patrol. Finally, and rounding up these sort of big vehicle style data sheets before we get on to characters.
Alright, we skipped this. We don't give a fuck about this.
Rough do much. Let's get into Death Guard characters.
Oh
boy.
boy.
Start with the big man himself. Mortarian's received some enormous boost in this codex. Previously he was 300 points, and maybe a little bit non-threatening compared with what you'd expect for a Primarch, but he's certainly got a lot more damage rules on the go now. He remains with his big 16 wounds at toughness 12 with a 2+ save and a 5+ feel no pain, so certainly going to take a massive amount of focus firepower to gun him down. He moves 10 inches with fly, can deep strike if you need to, but I suspect that most of the time it's better to start him on the board. For his ranged attacks, he has rot winds that can chip away at light infantry, and a lantern with a big strength 10 damage 3 pistol shot. You'd have to choose between the
strongest sweep in the game.
Both went to 24-inch range, and the lantern is strength 10 rather than strength 9 now. His melee got the really big increase though. Silenced his strike profile was maybe
that is
rather than damage 4.
That is impressive though. Okay, as much as I like to hear Auspex Yap, I kind of want to just look at this myself because otherwise I won't take it all in. Rotwind 24, D6 plus 3. Okay, blast, devastating, lethal, psych. Jesus, did it have that before? Let me see. All shooting is now 24-inch range, and Lantern is strength 10. Silent. Okay, so maybe I had it before and I just didn't pay attention to it. But skill 7 minus 2 1. Okay, so yeah, Rotwind is okay. Devastating is nice, but Lantern strength 10. Strength. I think it used to be 12, right, for that one, because it was like a pistol. Yeah, it was a pistol. Sustain D3 10 minus 3 3. That is chunky. Rotwind being minus 3 AP within contagion is pretty strong too. I like how you basically treat Death Guard like you do AdMech, but instead of like being within Doctrina range, it's within contagion range. Melee weapon, silent strike, lethal, devastating. Damn. Devastating D6 plus 1, huh? That is crazy. Strength 14, so yeah, it's basically a las cannon. AP minus 4 if you're within contagion. What do you do against this? You avoid it like the plague. You're not killing this guy. Because we suck at tank busting. Lethal hit, sustain 1 on the sweep profile. Wow. So basically full strength Dark Pact with the strongest melee profile in the game. Holy. Alright, host of plagues. At the end of your movement phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy within 6, adding 1 of afflicted. On a 3-up, they take d3. Okay, so it's basically just the rule from the Terminator detachment, but way more consistent. Okay. Let's see. Lord of the Death Guard. Reactive move 5 for 1 Death Guard unit within 6. Triggers when... Okay. Not on a charge. Interesting. Just a normal move. It's not bad. That's actually pretty nice for, again, Terminators. 1 Death Guard unit within 6 is attacked in the fight phase on a 2+. They can fight on death if they have not already fought. Is anything ever going to live within 6 inches of Mortarion, though? Especially if you have Terminators around it? It's a really strong ability, but it's so situational. Because 2+ fight on death is... it's gross. I guess some armies just don't have a choice. Like, World Eaters, Slanesh, you know, trying to think of another melee army. Tyranids, maybe. Well, I don't know. I feel like Tyranids are more shooting than anything nowadays. 1 Death Guard unit within 6 that has been shot can return fire, shooting as if it was your shooting phase. Cool! So we lose Elimination Volley, but they get it on their fucking Primarch? Imagine if Call had that, dude. Imagine if Call had shoot back on fucking... That is literally the thing we lost from Index. And the thing that would be fucking awesome for the army that hits on 4s that is supposedly the fucking, whatchamacallit, the shooting army. Shooting back would be fucking awesome with like a breacher break. That sucks. I mean, it's a really strong ability, but that sucks. I wish we had something like that's what I was saying in my call video. I think like call would be costed way more than what is he 145 right now? No, he's 135, I think. He would be costed way more than that if he had an ability that was as strong as that. Like that would be fucking awesome for AdMag. You raise his point cost to like I don't know 200 or something. It's just me spitballing. But like you raise his points cost, you make things that are bad better because of his inclusion. Like he wouldn't be auto include, but he'd be really fucking strong for a dedicated list around him. You know what I mean? That's what they should do with Call. But instead they're like, no, you get +1 OC or +1 to leadership. It's fucking god damn it, bro. God damn it.
It's damage d6 +1, so better against tough stuff, but less.
Like Call should have this host of plague thing that just says treat this unit as battle line or something. You know what I mean? Or this unit has the keyword, and then he has 3 aura abilities on top of that.
Reliable against 3 wound or 4 wound infantry. It did gain the devastating wounds.
God damn it, bro.
Which means that 4 big foes are big and vulnerable in the enemy turn. He can either use these on himself or Death Guard.
I'm glad that he's going up in cost, because now when I make my Death Guard army, I have 100 points less to make. Like, sure, for gameplay reasons, that kind of sucks, because it's, like, less things that I can fit, but I'd rather have a finished army faster.
Units within 6 inches. The first one is a reactive move, so move 5 inches when an enemy or of them.
Okay, yeah, we kind of went over this.
5 inches is listed as 95 here, and he is looking rather fearsome. He's a big scary Terminator character with
Wait, melee units get +1 in lands. Holy shit. Yo, Death Shrouds are fucking eating, dude. First time this model is destroyed on a +2, set it up with 3 wounds remaining. Oh my goodness, dude.
Toughness 7, and he still hits very hard in close combat. 5 attacks hitting on a 2 at strength 9, AP 2 and damage 3, all with lethal hits. Or
dude, this is giving like fucking whatchamacallit, like 9th edition Codex creep. Holy shit. Cause like normally when the Codex comes out, things get like marginally worse, but you gain a bunch of options, right? Cause the whole point of indexes is that they're like super strong because you only have 1 or 2 things. That's why you tend to lose more than you gain. But like Jesus fuck. Damage buff swap from reroll hits to lands. Yeah. Reroll hits sucks because you're hitting on 2s anyway, unless there's like a modifier, but like whatever. That is way better.
Profile gained a pip of strength. The sweep profile gained strength 6 and AP 1. His really big deal things are especially.
I wish our more powerful character in lore could hold at least a candle to other factions. No. We are battle line dependent. Our leader has battle line and you will like it.
Vector of Disease 1 changed his melee buff around. Previously, this was reroll hits in melee for his lead units, which was alright, but Death Cloud Terminators.
Bro, this guy's fucking insane. 90, and he only went up 15. By the way, this model isn't available. Thank you, GW. Holy fuck, that's actually crazy, dude.
Anyway, so it wasn't huge. Now, instead of that, it's the Stained Hits 1 and the Lance keyword, and throwing a +1 to wound into the mix is definitely a big win for them. He'll really like any of the detachment effects that can get critical hits to go off on a 5+. There are a few that can offer that in the detachments. Then otherwise, his other special rule is pretty good as well. Unholy Resilience means the first time he's destroyed, he gets back up on a 2+ with 3 wounds remaining. And he does have enough melee threats where him coming back to have another go could have a big impact on an enemy.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting one for running him completely solo as well, as it just means that it's a unit that the opponent guaranteed can't shoot down in a turn. Could be interesting for solo missions, deep striking and things, as he's not going to be a trivial thing to take down in that Terminator armor. Overall, looks like an absolutely great data sheet. Seems like he'd be a solid leader for Death Shroud. He does seem fine with Black Lords as well, though. Next up, we've got the Lord of Virulence, the sort of gunnery commander Terminator character. His stat line is similar to the Lord of Contagion, and then he has the Twin Plague Spewer with some plague-related anti-infantry heavy flame
he finally hits on 2s.
and then the heavy Plague Fist, so basically a Power Fist profile with lethal hits, and it now hits on a 2, not a 3. His changes were to his special rules. While leading a unit, you can reroll wound rolls with shooting attacks, and that's quite nice with Black Lord Terminators, given that they
reroll wound rolls. Yep, still really good. At the start of the shooting phase, nominate 1 enemy unit within 30 inches invisible. This phase, Death Guard units can reroll hit rolls of 1 or all hit rolls with black. So it just got even better. Yeah, like it still works like it used to with the Plague Burst crawlers. And now on top of that, it also just gives reroll hits of 1. This is wild, man. Oh, strongest melee profile in the game right there. It's across like 4 of the fucking characters. You'd think that it'd be a little bit more unique. Damn, dude.
They could be +1 strength.
Damn, this is looking
extra AP
crazy.
just at base, never mind anything else you could get from detachments. And then they could also be re-rolling 1s to hit as well due to his Blight Bombardment special rule. But this one's got even more.
I'm glad too, because I'm building a Terminator Death Guard list. And
visible to this model.
they just look incredible.
Various ways. Lastly, for the big Terminator Lords, we've got Typhus, who's been an absolute auto-include in Death Guard armies prior to the Codex.
Yes,
he
has.
Things haven't really changed too much for him.
Whoa, 105. Damn. Already moves 5, but is now T7. Okay. +1 attack on strike and +2 attack on sweep. Okay, so from 510 to 612. That's it. Okay. I'm not the biggest fan of him going up on points, but with everything that this army can take, I kind of understand it. He was already an auto-include. Yeah, he looks solid still. I hope Emperor's Children can become enemies to Ultramarines to get this amount of stuff. No, they won't. It's a Chaos faction. Come on now. And they just got released this year. It'll be like maybe 3 years before they get something good.
Contagion now, melee, and points cost to be a very strong.
Alright, so Typhus didn't change much. This guy must have changed a lot. Playcaster.
Next up, we've got the Malignant Plague Caster, pre-Codex 65 points. As the Death Guard Psyker model, he can lead Plague Marines and gain the option to lead Pox Walkers as well. He still has really quite a lot of value just with his own damage profile, which is perhaps surprisingly punchy for a Psychic attack. He gets a 12-inch torrent with D6 plus 3 shots, at Strength 6, AP minus 2 and damage D3. And when combined with Contagion debuffs, that can make that a pretty serious proposition. He also has a bit of melee with the Corrupted Staff as well.
Sorry, Auspex. When leading a unit, models have sustained hits 1 against afflicted targets, range, and melee. That I think he's good with both Plague Marines and Poxwalkers because he can reliably get Poxwalker. No, he can't reliably get him in, but Poxwalkers can get in with wait, he can't infiltrate forward though because he doesn't have the infiltrate keyword. So maybe not. You'd have to start those Poxwalkers in the back. Swapped melee debuff, yeah, for sustained hits 1. Fallout rule now debuffs. Oh, persistent fallout. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, if one or more enemies made Plague 1 scores a wound against an enemy infantry unit, it has -2 and then is enfeebled. It's okay. Buff goes great with any crit 5s options. Oh, sustain hits. Yeah, you can give him crit 5s. That generalist attachment is looking really strong because of the strats. Torrent damage is great with rhinos. 100%. The fact that they have firing deck and you can put 2 of them in a unit can make it 24-inch range. What do you mean? For the playcaster? Wait, am I missing something?
Oh. On top of that,
Plague Wind, Plague Bolt Pistol, 12, Corrupted Melee. So yeah, what do you mean? Hammer Detachment. They had something that increases range? I didn't totally miss that. Wait, what? Oh, was it one of the enhancements maybe? I just fucking zoned out for it. Oh, right here. Yeah, that's okay. It's alright. Plague Wind is really strong, but I don't think it's like one that, like, you know. 24-inch Flamer, D6 plus 3 if it's focused. 6 minus 2d3. I mean, it's nice on a Rhino. If you lead 2 squads, Rhinos can take what, 12? So you can take 2 squads, right? 2 squads with Plague Marines, then take a Fetid Blight spawn and a or Foul Blight spawn and a Playcaster. Then the 2 Playcasters in that Rhino can both shoot their flamers out with didn't they used to have Devastating? Am I just tweaking? I thought they did. Maybe I'm wrong.
unit gets sustained hits 1 against afflicted targets, and that applies both at range and in melee. I guess they'd always get it when they're in melee, and might need other units to help them out if there's things far away at range that they're trying to shoot at. He could be a good combo with the Biologist Putrefier, I suppose, where he could be getting sustained on lethal hits on a 5+. Finally, his other special rule is Pestilent Fallout, and this one is maybe a slightly more niche one, but can be impactful. After he's shot something with his Plague Wind at 12 inches, if he hits an infantry unit, then it then counts as Enfeebled, and then it has -2 to its move characteristic that lost the bit about debuffing advances and charges, so it's not as powerful as it used to be. That one feels like a nice little extra. I feel like he certainly provides enough to his unit between the sustained hits and his current attack, though.
I think Gifts and Contagion is the most important part here. But you have to get with an Affliction. At least the Plague Marines can spread it. Which sucks because I think that resolves after they shoot. So you can't, like, say, shoot the Plaguecaster, give them Afflicted, because I think the Plague Marines only do it for themselves. Like, they have to shoot in order to give it. I don't think they give that thing to the unit.
He could certainly be a solid choice in making a very dangerous unit of Plague Marines, particularly jumping out of a Rhino and then re-rolling wound rolls with that Plague Wind. Next up, we've got the Noxious Blightbringer, and here's the third unit that can lead Poxwalkers now. He's been quite niche previously and hasn't really been played in competitive armies so much recently.
He was played in Flightblown, but he was like a tech piece. Went up in points. I'm glad they're going up in points. I want like an elite army, and the Death Guard is really starting to lean that way. Oh, excuse me. Less painting for me. I'm finishing up a Demon Prince right now, so I hope they're good. Became T6. Plague Bale gained Anti-Psyker 2. Move buff also gained +1 move. I'll have to see what that is. Battle Shock changed from flat 2 modifier to forcing chests if at all damaged. Yeah, see, that flat 2 was really strong. Because there was a way in Flightblown to turn that to -3, and you basically just fucking drop him off in a Rhino and then go, boom, this is mine. Can lead Poxwalkers and double them up. Oh, you can put 2 Blightbringers in the same squad? Okay, let me see. Blightbell is kind of whack. When this model is leading a unit, you can reroll advanced charge rolls made for it and then add 1 to the movement characteristic. I think that matters more for Poxwalkers than Marines. Getting Marines in is kind of nice because they can take a lot of heavy plague weapons. But yeah. I think it's more of a Poxwalker unit. Enemy units must test Battle Shock if they are below starting strength in the command phase within 9 inches. And Psychers are -1 to the test. Yeah. I think the second rule matters more with Poxwalkers because you can, like, Poxwalker in. And then with all the fucking hits that they have, they're surely going to chip something. So
he gets a pass.
They have Death Guard has a lot of Battle Shocks. I know that they've kind of been pushing that with Nurgle .. but like it's starting to get to the point where you're just forcing so many tests that they're bound to fail some. Doesn't have Infiltrate, so he can't infiltrate forward. You're gonna have to start those Poxwalkers in the back.
Plasma Pistol to shoot with range, and then a Cursed Plague Bell which has got 0 AP. With a bunch of special shots to a character as opposed to a first one, and it auto hits with Torrent at strength 7, AP -2, damage 2, and ignores cover. Quite a nice punchy profile with the Contagions of Nurgle on the
Whoa,
go.
anti-infantry too. Did he have that before? That is strong. I never really used the Blight Spawn. That is strong though. Yeah, auto hit, wounding on 2s, ignores cover, so it's effectively -3. Plague puts it to -3. Damn it. God damn, he fucking hoses Marines. Combat weapon you don't really care about. One model with this ability in the army can trigger its fight's first ability in the fight phase. Each model can only use this ability once per battle. Ooh. So I guess there is a reason to take that fight enhancement. Okay, so this was the downgrade I was talking about. This is very similar to Possessed when they lost devastating wounds per activation of Dark Pact to just once per game. Cannot start or end advanced moves within 9 inches of this. Sure. That's a unique rule. It's not making up for fight first all the time though. Damn, that sucks. it's still like a nice blitz. Because Plague Marines never really live long enough for you to fucking get multiple activations with them. Usually they like go in, fight, and then instantly die if they win that fight because they get shot. Okay. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. It's just a lot less investment. Okay.
Fights first to his units, though it's a bit more limited than it was. It's no longer just permanent fights first all the time. It's just once per game, and only one Foul Blight spawn in your army can use it in the same turn. That's still very impactful, though.
Oh, that sucks. Wait. So you can't have multiple Blight spawns activating this ability. It has to be one at a time. Ugh.
First is the most important of them.
That kind of
You also
blows.
picked up another small special rule as well called Putrefying Stink, and that basically means that you could get a grenade one, just the standard profile that he throws out with D6 shots at strength 7, 8.
Alright, became T6. Yep, Hyper Blight Grenades S7 from 5. Wow. So they're wounding Gravis on 3. Injector Pistol gains Anti-Infantry 2. Holy fuck. Wow. Okay. Lost free grenade. What? Wait. Now gains plus OC6 if he kills a unit in melee? Losing they really didn't like that. He went from having like free grenades to like, okay, well you can only do it once, to now just not having it at all. I feel like if they did that, they should have made his grenades a little bit more like have some clause when a unit gets hit by hyper blight grenades. It like that clause that they have about like whenever a unit is attacked, roll a d6 plus 1 if they're afflicted. It would have been really good here. Man, losing free grenades blows. Weapons, I mean, yeah, I think you just go full Terminator with this fucking army now. Does he still have the crit? Okay, he does. Weapons equipped by the models have lethal hits in addition. Okay, he still has that. That's good. There's no way of giving anything sustained, right? On 5s? Well, wasn't it the Plaguecaster gives sustained hits 1 if something is afflicted? So now you can give him lethal sustained as long as they're within affliction and then trigger that on a 5. Not bad. Okay. The first time this model unit is destroyed in melee adds... Oh, destroys a unit in melee. Adds 6 to the model's objective control. That's kind of nice because, like, if you take this guy with a blight spawn, go in a point, kill something because you have fight first, as you lose... as you start losing units when you're fighting over that point, he still holds strong. So, okay. Damn, losing free grenades sucks, though.
AP 1 and damage 2, so still some damage, but not the 3 mortal wounds that he had previously. Otherwise, his good buffing rule is still the same. Weapons equipped by the unit get lethal hits, and they go off on a 5+, not a 6. I can make Plague Marines go from a fairly solid damage unit to a far scarier one, and could be really interesting to attach to the same unit as the Malignant Plaguecaster now, given that he can give them sustained hits. So that's a lot of
exactly.
hits with both sustained and lethal effects going off.
Exactly.
Otherwise, his second special rule is now an objective coming with it.
Okay.
So main thing is generating up some...
Tallyman! Went up by 5. Goes T6. That's awesome because usually he's ran by himself. Lost sustained D3. Why? What's the point? Swapped +1 to hit to ignore modifiers to hit. Ignore modifiers to ballistic and weapon skill and hit roll while leading this unit. On a command fit. Okay, so he still has the 7-fold chant. This is all the more reason to not take him in a squad, in my opinion. I always take him alone and just sit him in the back in my home objective. Okay.
For the Plague Host, the 7-fold chance gives you an extra command point in the command phase if you roll 2d6 and get a 7 or more, so that works out as a 58% chance to generate one. His other special rule previously was a +1 to hit, and it seems to have got a bit worse, really. While leading a unit, you now...
If it was an aura, that'd be a lot better. If it was like a 6-inch aura that ignores modifiers, so they move it out of Mortarion but give it to him. Because then it would incentivize you to take him up in the front a little bit more, or you could play him in the back and just use him as a CP generator.
ignore ballistic skill, weapon skill, and hit roll modifiers, and that's not bad, but it is also directly worse than getting the +1 to hit all the time, which would even apply if you weren't taking modifiers. Getting command points isn't the worst thing in the world though. He could be alright with a Plague Marine unit tasked to guard the home field, or if you know that there's good line of sight blocking terrain, he could just be running just completely on his own, maybe sat in a ruin and screening out an area of the board at the same time as generating some command points for a fairly cheap cost.
Exactly.
The Plague Surgeon was 50 points.
I forgot about the Plague Surgeon. I forgot he was a thing. T6 swaps a nice niche healing buff for more personal melee damage. So he's basically an apothecary. Let's see. That's it? He's just that one change? Alright. When this model is leading a unit, you can return one destroyed bodyguard. Yep. At the start of the fight phase, select one enemy unit. This model attack scores critical foot. Oh! It's only on fight phase. You're probably only caring about lethal hits. I mean, it's kind of nice. Say, like, you ping something off of a big monster or something, and then you just charge some fucking Plague Marines to screen, just to lock them into combat. You could at least score criticals on 5s, like your lethals on 5s, and try to, like, wound something that's a lot higher. Still likely to be a beat niche unless super cheap. Better in an attachment where he can heal D3. Maybe. I don't think you really care. You're kind of putting him on something that is more disposable.
Points pre-updates, and plus if the enemy target that he's hitting is below, he can want it, so a bit more weight on.
This shouldn't be an individual model. The Icon Bearer should just be fucking scrapped, in my opinion. It sounds like something that should just be in a fucking Plague Marine squad. Like, base, right? Like the Icon of Despair or whatever. And this model is leading a unit, add 1 to its OC. Lost boosted contagion. Yeah. Once per battle at the start of any phase, select one battle shock unit within 12. Okay, so it has control edict from the marshal, basically. Battle shock rule won't help score primaries on your turn due to timing. Wait, why wouldn't it? Start of any phase. Oh, because you test for battle shock at the end of your command phase, don't you? So then you test, immediately go into scoring. Yeah, you'd have to do it at the start of your command phase. Okay, I see what it means. You couldn't do it in your like at most it matters, I guess, for maybe second. No, because I think if you get battle shocked while you're doing an action, you just drop out of the action. Okay, so I mean, okay, you just don't take them like usual.
Its primary objectives, as it cancels at the start of any phase, and if you fail battle shock in the normal way in the command phase, then you immediately score objectives right after, and there's no opportunity to cancel it before you score that objective. Overall, he looks even more niche than before, if anything. Plague Marine's already had a fair amount of OC with OC2 per model, and has lost its contagion buff too. Maybe could run him as one of the icons within a Plague Marine unit, perhaps. Finally, for the Death Guard characters before the demons.
This is what I want to see, because I am painting one right now. It's damn, 35-point increase. He better get some fucking buffs. +1 movement to 8. Okay, +1 toughness to 12. Okay, so he's getting wounded on 4s now by las cannons. Plague Spear replaced with Infernal Cannon profile. Okay, swaps 6+ Feel No Pain for Infantry Aura of Cover. That's hot shit. Lone Operative within 3 of Infantry. Okay, discounted command point stratagem. Okay, so let me read this. While within 3 inches of a Death Guard infantry, the unit has Lone Op. Awesome. I do like that. Once per battle round, 1 Death Guard unit within 12 can discount 1 stratagem by 1 CP. So he's a Lord, but he doesn't have to lead. Death Guard units within 6 inches gain benefit of cover. Okay, alright. It sucks to not have Feel No Pain, but it was a 6+. I wonder who would have the strongest Demon Prince. I think right now it's still Slanesh. But with how much support there is for Terminators, having him, one, get a Lone Op while also giving them 1 free CP, yeah, he is actually looking pretty scary. The thing is, like, even if he removes himself from Lone Op, toughness 12 is very hard to hit with a las cannon, because now you're hitting on 4s instead of 3s. So you need to dedicate some serious shit to him, or your Death Shroud Terminators are going to continuously get buffed. So Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, 6 benefit of cover kind of sucks, but if they're just going to be out there with a if he's going to be out there with Terminators who already move slow and probably can't make it to cover sometimes, it is actually really fucking cool. So he's like a moving terrain piece basically. That also okay, all right. I'm on board. I'm on board. He does look really good. I think 1 at a minimum 1 is like a good run. He is like 200 points though. Yeah, the strat part. Since Lord of Poxes, since you don't have a Chaos Lord anymore, and you don't have a way to discount CP, he's the best way. 12 is pretty nice too. The fact that he can be like, okay, well, hey, last turn I needed these Terminators to have it, but now I need these Terminators to have it.
Demon Prince.
I'm a fan. Yeah, no, I would trade out that 6+ Feel No Pain, not for the aura of cover, but for the strategist part.
Tough to take down. Being fairly good start, just interesting. One raw based all this prince. He moves 12 inches and is.
Oh, that's right. There's 2 profiles. I forgot there's one with wings. Oh shit, there is one with wings, huh? Mine, I think, has wings. Fuck. Well, I don't know. I have a proxy. Mine is a proxy that looks like a manta ray. I'll show you guys after. 95. Okay. +1 toughness, +1 movement. Save changes to melee. No longer has dev wounds on the charge. Okay. That kind of blows. Swaps Plague Spear for Infernal. Oh, that's what I missed on the last one, didn't I? What is Infernal Cannon? Lethal hits 3, 2, 5, -1, 2. That's not great. I'm not a fan of that. Gains Deep Strike. Did they not have Deep Strike before? Wait, did I miss that? Battle Shock. -1 to test. Desperate Escapes for any... yeah. Each time a model ends a charge move, an enemy in engagement range must test at -1. Enemies falling back within 6 inches must Desperate Escape. Besides monsters and vehicles. Enemies that are Battle Shock test at -1. Yeah, no, not great.
And his toughness level a bit, then they're just overall disparity. Just most of these are really quite similar to the ones in the updated digital demon index. Though weirdly enough, there are just a few small changes on a few of the data sheets that are just random stat line things, as well as a few things shifted to make them work for Death Guard. Keywords wise, they get the Plague Legions keyword, which is the way that they're locked to the one detachment and can't be taken otherwise. They also have the summoned keyword as well, and have the special rule Pact of Decay, which means that you can't field Plague Legions.
Are these all just the same?
112 plus 50 bile overall is a bit better, being strength 7 versus strength 6 in the demon index. Not sure why there's a difference there.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
You can also take the epic hero version of the Great
Roticus!
He's got 2 more wounds and is otherwise at least fairly similar. A different profile shooting attack that could be alright for Overwatch against light infantry. Fairly punchy melee with strength 10 and damage 3. He can buff himself or another Plague Legions unit for
yeah, it's just strength changes. Is that all it is?
Bearers, the foot troops of Nurgle. 2 wounds at toughness 5 with a 5+ invulnerable save, and OC2 means they're a bit of an annoying chore to scrape off objectives, and they've got their special rule for sticky.
Wait, what? End of any phase.
The objectives, if they take something at the end of the command phase, the only small change for them is that now cancelled if the opponent controls it at the end of any phase, as opposed to the start or end of the turn. Not too different there. I guess maybe you can take 1 unit to have that rule on the go. It doesn't really feel tempting to take more of them in the allied detachment. Nurglings here can only be taken in units of 6. They've got quite a lot of wounds, with 4 wounds at toughness 3 and a 5+ invulnerable save. Again, that's a little bit better than the demon index version with a 5 versus a 6. They can infiltrate and debuff the enemy with their -1 to hit rule, special rule when they're in engagement range.
At least they're better.
At
least they're better in their respective codex than they are in the index, like Slaanesh demons.
Units of them they seem basically auto-include in the allied detachment. Take a full
unit size reduced to 3 to 6.
And annoy them in the early game, bring them back and then send them in again. Feast of Nurgle are available in units of 1 or 2.
Unchanged. Okay, yeah, it just regenerates at the end.
A chunk 4 6 watch for demons. That seems they're unchanged here. 5 wound toughness 8.
Unchanged again. Okay.
Play units can certainly enjoy hitting things with the unit for sticky objectives, though probably not more. That brings us to the end of the data sheets in the book, though, with the demons talked about. And overall, really quite a lot of changes for Mortarian's Legion, all in all. Overall, looks like reception to the book's been really quite positive. They've definitely added a bunch of interest to a whole load of units, maybe made possible by the fact that the index was a bit bare and had a lot of maybe in general. It does look those units to be efficient.
So that's
and the
basically
Terminator
it.
one needing the Terminator.
All right. Terminators look fucking gross. They are looking mega scary, and I am a big fan of that. Overall, I think it looks really good. And I think, as much as I am fanboying over the Terminators, coming at this from an AdMech perspective, oh shit, man. Yeah, 4 wound Terminators at 7. Arc rifles are strength 8, right? Let me check. Um, okay, so we still wound them on threes at the very least. But yeah, having to match that 4 wound threshold is going to fucking blow. That is going to suck. I think there might actually be an argument for destroyers there. Yes, you need to get double the amount of shots to kill one because it's only supercharged at 2. Oh, well. Minus 3 AP starts to lose its value because they save on 2s. I'm assuming they have a 4+ invuln. You have double the amount of shots without having to get as close. But you have to supercharge in order to wound them on a 3 and deal 2 damage to them. And then you can stay the fuck away from them. But on the charge, they still fuck you up. So yeah, that one's tough. That one's a tough one to crack. I don't know how we're gonna fare against these guys. A lot of their units have like small little pocket flamers or just like enough shooting to kind of fuck us up. Because we are very low wound, low save. We have invuln saves, but they're not great. -1 toughness around us puts us to 2, so they're probably wounding us on 2s for almost everything. -1 save puts us at, what, 5? So they force our invuln just by being around us. Not to mention the fact that Plague Marines can just afflict you by shooting you. Yeah. Death Guard might be an extremely fucking hard matchup. Like, even if you try to charge with something like Fulgurites to try to do that 2 damage a pop to try to kill them, they don't have enough attacks and they just fucking flame you on Overwatch. Dude. I don't know. Anyway. I wanted to show you guys the Demon Prince that I was working on. I think I could say that this is a Demon Prince on foot, right? I think I can make that argument. This thing right here. Mine has another head. It has that head. It has wings, but it's a manta ray. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Demon wings. Fuck. We're just gonna skip that. We're just gonna... we'll model for disadvantage. He can get shot easier because of these fucking wide things. Do you like 2? Like 2 Demon Princes in a list? I think it starts to get kind of tough if you're trying to fit in Mortarion. Because Mortarion went up to 400, allegedly, right? I think it'll be kind of hard to squeeze a Demon Prince, 2 Demon Princes and Mortarion, because that puts you at what? Roughly 800 points. And yes, they're really good buff pieces, but they're also just buff pieces. They do like damage pretty well and stuff, but I don't think they're going to be doing the heavy hitting. Mortarion can handle his own. I feel like every list kind of... Okay, well, not every list, but there is attacks of Mortarion kind of like there is with Angron. He's not as necessary, but you have to account for like a 400 point tax on top of the fact that Terminators are probably taking like what... I would assume a squad of 6 of Death Shroud, maybe 2, and then a squad of 3. So either like 6-3-3 or 6-6 is probably what I would do, not counting the Lord. And then Plague Marines or whatever you decide, probably Rhinos because they move slow. You could double down in the Terminator list and go like, okay, I'm gonna do 6-6 Death Shroud and then 5-5 or 5 or fuck it 10-10 Blight Lords. And then you have to account the fucking Demon Princess in there. Like, your list is going to get hammered up pretty quick, I think. It's cool because you have a way to, like, play these guys, like, super elite. Which I'm a fan of. But 2 is really putting a hamper, right? I think as much as I would like to run 2, I think you just run 1 if you're trying to get a combined list. But if you're really doubling down on, like, Terminators... Because the Demon Prince really likes the infantry, due to him. That's how he gets his fuck. What words are escaping me right now? That's how he get his loan up. He has to be near infantry. So, off the top of my head, what I'm thinking this is probably really bad. I have to put it on paper, but a squad of 6 Death Shroud, 2 squads of 6 Death Shroud, right? 2 Demon Princes, Mortarion, 2 squads of 5 Blight Lords, 2 Lord of Contagions, and then fill the rest with Pox Walkers, Plague Marines, Rhinos as necessary. Simply because what I'm thinking is the Demon Princes will get focused if they don't have anything around them. So I don't want to start Death Shrouds on the board personally, so that's why I say 5 Blight Lords to walk along with the Demon Prince and kind of be like a really annoying piece there. And then when they're ready to deep strike in, you can kind of swap over the Demon Prince and hand off the Blight Lords into the Death Shrouds once they start making their advance, right? And then still keep the Lone Op aura. It really is a tech thing too. I think if you're fighting a melee army, maybe you start the Death Shroud on the board, but if you are fighting a ranged army, then I think you start them in reserve, because you want to close them in without them getting shut off the board. The moment you start losing them is when you start like really feeling the points loss. So that's just my initial impression. I would really have to see the points and start putting it on paper and see what I like. But I think Terminators are definitely like the biggest thing here. So yeah. Well, I was gonna raid Aurelia because she was playing tabletop, and they had Death Shroud, but she just went offline. So rip. Let's see if I can raid. I haven't raided anybody. Not that I have many people on Twitch tonight, but fuck it. I have viewers. Oh, Froggy is still on. Let's raid Froggy. All right, chat. I don't know how long she's gonna stay on, but I'm gonna drop a link if you want to go over there, and then we'll send a raid. I have to learn how to do this because I have no idea how to do this. But I need to learn eventually. But we're gonna wrap it up there just because I have work in a little bit, and I just wanted to do a quick review. Overall, I give this like a fucking 9 out of 10. This looks awesome. All right, so how do I do this? It's like /raid. Raid channel. Froggy PhD. Boom. All right, chat. Thank you for tuning in. Maybe we'll start another one tomorrow or something.
Unbeaten night, and I will continue my current streak of no wins. I'm so sorry.
Does it just auto?
When it's gonna come back on and
I don't know when it raids.
from like the, you know, the providers, and I'm not.
Here, let me throw her up.
It comes back on pretty fast.
They were just playing TTS,
Quite a bit, and I'm
which, as we know, that's like basically what my channel does. If you're on YouTube, click the link, go show them some love a little bit. I think they're about to go offline. I don't know how this raid stuff works though. It says started. Do you guys have to like clink something?
We'll have to do it again.
Yes, we will do it again. We'll do more studying, but I think we learned a lot today. It'll be so much easier than it was before. So
They're studying.
this happened, I was just suddenly everything went dark, and I was sitting alone in my room. Oh no!
Oh, it looks like their game got canceled.
Such a good time. You were like
Rip.
me in like melee, and
If you're on YouTube and you got the link on chat, because I can't raid from YouTube, just tell them that I sent you guys, because I can't raid on YouTube.
I think that's where Death Guard is slightly like on equalish footing with Custodes.
Oh, it was Death Guard versus Custodes? Once the Codex comes out, they might actually match their Terminators, to be honest.
my wardens, and I was like, wow. Yeah. So I think you were gonna get me in the end. So
Sounds like Death Guard lost, though.
don't worry, we've got it next time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell them I'm not watching the stream because I'm talking to you from my phone.
They can hear you in my
but-
stream. I told your chat that you're uncool on my stream.
Yeah. Tell them I'm very sorry. I did not realize this was gonna happen.
Am I running ad block?
Out of my control.
I don't think I have ad block here.
Yeah. I feel really bad.
They say it's
Alright. All right, Chad. I think the stream went or the raid went through. I guess that's how it works. Yeah, we'll look into doing a World Eaters one, not tomorrow, but probably the day after. So, I maybe, I don't know. Like I said, work kind of hard to decide there. But I think that wraps us up. So, thank you all for watching. Yeah, bye. I don't know how to say bye.